so I make it harder.
Michelin fights waste by developing tires made to last, so you can use them for longer.
World time has come to
Michelin, motion for life.
Seven days ago, IMSA began its virtual revolution as the IMSA Esports Michelin Global Championship got underway. It was an electric race and it went caution-free, but it was two familiar names in the sim racing universe that took the victory as the Apex Racing Team and SimRC took the checkered flag. We head now to the WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca and we get ready to do it again in the short, fast and furious championship. Hello everyone and welcome back to VCO Esports and to RaceSpot TV for round 2 of this 2022 IMSA Esports Michelin Global Championship powered by VCO. My name is Arjuna Kankipati, delighted to be joined alongside once again by Lewis McLeod. We have Ewan O'Leary in pit lane ready to talk us through all the action, and Lewis, I mean, what a crazy round number 1.
I mean, it really was. Road Atlanta always delivers. A bit of a roller coaster out there. It's normally a dramatic circuit. And how do you go a little bit more dramatic? Well, you go to Laguna Seca, 1.9 miles of absolute insanity, especially with these two classes being the GTDs and the touring cars. Couldn't get more different between the two of them. And that is what made last round so exciting.
And I think the reality is we have expectations for a safety car here today, but we'll see how it plays out in the 2 hours and 40-minute race. Let's talk a bit about the schedule because it is a short championship as we work our way to the start of the GTP Evolution. Of course, we head to the best coast of the USA. Of course, I'm not biased, being just about 90 minutes away from the WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. Then a week off before we preview the Battle of the Bricks. We head to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway before we end, where 2023 will begin. We head to the World Center of Racing, Lewis.
Love all of these tracks deliver their own little thing. Indianapolis Motor Speedway, as much as I love the oval, I'm a little bit more cautious around the road course, stating about how good it is. I'm not that much of a fan. But between the other three, at least, there is no question. 3 of the absolute best tracks in the world. Road Atlanta is a brilliant circuit, normally up in the top 5 of most people's lists. Laguna Seca is kind of a bit more of a Marmite track, actually. I find some people love it, some people absolutely despise it. Indianapolis and Daytona, well, at least when it comes to rovals, it's about as good as you're going to get. And Daytona is a season finale. If it is tight in the championship, I'm expecting a big drag race to the line between the top 2.
Oh, can you imagine the scenes? And that would be a script you could not even write. Of course, in this 4-round championship, it's short, so each team is required to nominate 2 full-season drivers. They're allowed 2 joker replacements. Already one team has gone past their allotment of jokers and takes a 20-second stop-and-go penalty at the start of the race. Qualifying has just begun. Drivers have 10 minutes and 4 attempts at a flying lap with the track to themselves. And then we get underway with the 2 hours and 40 minutes with live race control and safety cars. We went caution-free for round 1, but like we said, there's an expectation in the air, Lewis, for Benny, the pace car driver, to be a bit busier today.
Yeah, I mean, still, there is part of me that's kind of like, I'm not sure what we're going to do when it comes down to guys. If we get through this round caution-free, I genuinely, hand on heart, think we'll get through Indianapolis and Daytona caution-free. I genuinely believe it. This is the one round where it's really, really up in the air. I was surprised we didn't see any at the last round, but it is what it is. You know, we didn't get any last round. Maybe we'll get one this round. Maybe we won't. I want to see the spicy strategy though.
To be fair, there were a few moments where race control would have had the finger over the button, and if things had played out differently, the caution would have been triggered. Let's talk about the standings after round 1, because points are paid out not just in the race, but qualifying as well. But the Apex Racing Team are almost perfect in this regard. 98 is the one that leads the way from the Mercedes-AMG Urano, and then the Williams Esports Razor. 3 Mercedes inside of the top 4. They were very strong in round number 1. However, when we talk about this GTD class with 6 manufacturers represented, Lewis, we should talk about the fact that we had a late midweek BOP update courtesy of the team at iRacing.
Yeah, just trying to balance things out, adjust things ever so slightly and make things a little bit more settled when it comes to that. But I mean, I don't know. Everything seemed pretty balanced. So I don't think it's not been anything major, has it? It's not been anything like overwhelmingly large. Just the odd little change here and there.
Be very interesting to see how it plays out here. Of course, take a look at this. It will change drastically. Let's talk about the touring cars, though. Here, just 14 cars, 7 manufacturers, a Honda and Hyundai represented, 7 across the 2 of them. And what a fun fight we had between SimRC and R8G. But at the end of the day, beaten and battered, it was the Hyundai for SimRC, Lewis, that was able to take the victory at the Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta.
Which is expected. I mean, you said it before when it comes to the 2 teams that took victory being Apex and SimRC. They're 2 that we would expect towards the top. But with the touring car category, I think the thing from last round is that it was all talk of the Elantras that were normally the fastest around Road Atlanta. That was the expected thing, that they were going to be at the front. And yet R8G dragged those Hondas up into contention. What are they going to do today? I think this is slightly more of a Honda track from my touring car memory, but just dragging the Honda along. They were really the stand-up performer for me, realistically, in that race. And I kind of think that if they can copy and paste that form, they'll really show themselves as proper title contenders.
We'll see how it goes in qualifying, but that, of course, the look at the standings. What does this virtual revolution mean? Well, there are plenty of corollaries between the real and the virtual world. We saw that with the IMSA iRacing Pro Series, both in 2020 and 2021. We sat down with a true hybrid racer, Robbie Foley of Turner Motorsports and BS Competition, to talk more about this. So we're joined by Robbie Foley, driver of the 96 Turner Motorsports BMW M4 in the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship. And Robbie, you've been a long-time proponent of sim racing, and it kind of helped you, especially because you had a rather late introduction into motorsport.
Yeah, for sure. Sim racing's been a big part of my life, going back as early as I can remember, getting into Gran Turismo and in video games when I was younger, and then obviously recently a bit more serious with iRacing. So it's a great training tool that I use all the time to prepare for the real world, and also have a lot of fun with my BS competition teammates in big time sim races. So yeah, loving it.
And in terms of your sim racing, you won the 2021 IMSA Esports Pro Series Invitational race, but it was fair to say that the rest of the Pro Series later that year didn't go the best for you, and involved some shenanigans with your teammate, your roommate, who races alongside you. Yeah,
so we had a lot of fun. I had a good season with my BMW teammates. We did a lot of practicing, had some highlights with a pole position at Sebring in the first round and a few podiums along the way. But yeah, the final race basically at Sebring, everything was looking good in the lead, but I had a kind of computer glitch with my JRT, which does my fuel basically, and it was set to automatic instead of manual. So I had one of my BS teammates in the background saying, okay, this is what we need to refuel to make the end of the race. And I couldn't actually do it because JRT kept automatically basically doing the fuel. So to make a very long story short, my roommate was in a prototype. I was in the M8 GTLM, and he added an extra lap to the race by overtaking me. And unfortunately, because of the fueling issue, I ran out of gas on the last lap. So these things happen, I guess. In the real world, we have, we'll call them mechanical failures or other things that can happen in racing. And in the sim world, we have internet issues and sometimes software glitches. So that was one of them, unfortunately.
I think a lot of sim racers will be familiar with that sort of a story. Let's talk about how that series compares to what we're doing here today with this IMSA Esports Michelin Global Championship, because you are truly a hybrid racer. You've competed in the split-liveried BS Turner car, of course, that celebrated BS competition and Turner Motorsports collaboration. Exactly what do you see watching on from the sidelines from your teammates and their preparation, how it compares to what you did in 2021?
Yeah, it's similar, but there's some cool new features with multi-class different cars, and I think it's cool to include some sim pros in the Pro Series, where before it was all IMSA pros. I wish I could do it and participate this year, but I've got some other commitments that the schedules just don't work out. But yeah, I mean, you see great multi-class racing just as you do in the real world. So definitely cheering on my teammates, in the coming weeks in the next rounds, and hopefully they can put BS and BMW on top.
You've been a big part of this BS competition team since it started in late 2019.
Yeah, it's been a great journey for myself. It was cool to essentially meet the team through a connection with BMW and actually the original version of this IMSA Pro Series. So yeah, I was fortunate to meet some of the core group of guys through the BMW sim effort, and yeah, was able to join the team in basically just after the inception of it. So Always a great group of people and always a lot of fun competing in big sim races, but also cool to represent the team as one of the real world racers.
I've got to ask, from your perspective, how do sim racing teams work differently to the real world teams? Because, of course, we get so much more track time and preparation in the sim racing world that you can be a lot more flexible in how you do things.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's obviously a lot of synergies and similarities, but as you say, there's a lot more time, let's say, to devote to practicing on the sim because you're not limited to a schedule. So, for example, when myself, as I was getting up to speed at this high level of sim racing, I remember doing 8-hour days to prepare, and basically you're looking for half a tenth here and there. So it's almost more detail oriented than the real world in some ways, and mainly because you can put so much time in so much practice that we're talking half a tenth. And I remember some of our sessions we would host 10-hour practices, and everybody was within a tenth or a half a tenth, all 10, 11 of us. So yeah, there's great synergies between the two, and yeah, I enjoy the challenge of both, but also using sim racing to help prepare for my real world racing.
You're wearing the BS Turner hoodie, of course, and Turner Motorsports has been such a good partner of BS Competition as well. Just how special was it for you to represent BS Competition in the real world last year at Sebring, when the BMW M4 GT4 was adorned on one side with the BS Competition colors and on the other side the traditional Turner Motorsport paint?
Yeah, for sure. I think first of all, it's important to note that like both teams are very fun in the way that you know, they interact with the media and social media, but also very serious at the same time. So it was sort of a culmination of some ideas that came together to try to do the opposite of what we've seen. You've seen a real car go into the sim world and run plenty of real world liveries on trading paints or even partnerships. But we wanted to do the other, and as far as we know, we were the first to do it, and it was a great honor to be able to drive the car, one that we competed in iRacing and many big sim events, M4 GT4, and yeah, I think I'm obviously quite biased, but the livery was super cool, and the suit design that we had, which is living with the guys at BS in Germany. So for me, it was a great. The timeline of everything was pretty cool because this all started more or less around the kind of COVID lockdown, let's say, which was a tough time for everybody, but that actually helped us grow together as two teams, Turner and BS, into one, and I'm very lucky to be a part of both.
Well, thanks for joining us, Robbie. It's a bit sad that you won't be able to join us as a Joker driver over the course of this 2022 campaign, but I have no doubt that maybe we will see you for 2023. Best of luck for the winter. Let's head back to the action at the WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. Great to talk to Robbie there. He is truly a hybrid racer, and it is a shame that he won't be part of our field for this series. However, last week we chatted about the marketing aspect of having a great partner like Michelin be a part of this IMSA Esports Michelin Global Championship. This week we wanted to dive more into the world of simulation and how it benefits Michelin in their exploration of motorsports. We're joined now by Gary Swingle, the Senior Virtual Tire Designer at Michelin North America. And Gary, delighted to be joined by yet another talented person at the Michelin team. And we kind of want to explore this topic of simulation within the world of tire development.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, I'm a tire designer here at Michelin North America. I've been working for over 10 years now at Michelin, focusing on high-performance tires and race tire design. And we use simulation every day here at Michelin, from basic simulations just to look at the shape of the tire before it's actually built, to building fully characterized tire models that we use at our simulators both in Europe and North America. Accurate tire models allow us to test our design ideas on vehicles that are still being developed years before they hit the racetrack or the street.
And in terms of using the simulation then to develop high-performance tires, you have experience working in both the IMSA and the WEC paddocks across both sides of the pond. What exactly have you found is key to building high-performance tires?
So for me, the number one key is collaboration with our customers. A high-performance tire is different for one team to another team, just as it's different for someone who's driving a SUV versus someone who's driving a Porsche on the street. So understanding what your customer wants, understanding what the race team wants is really important. As you know, with iRacing, it depends a lot on the drivers. Certain drivers have a preference for being on the edge all the time, while other ones want a really progressive tire that's good for a really long stint. It depends on the conditions. Is it hot? Is it cold? Is it dry? Is it wet? There's a lot of different performances that we can simulate now, and really aid the teams in having good vehicle setups depending on what their definition of high performance is. For us, the key at Michelin is always, and our strength has always been, whether it's the road or the racetrack, balancing those performances and having a tire that performs really well, but for the duration.
And we'll talk more about this world of simulation within the world of Michelin later during the race. Let's head back to our extended VCO pre-show. So glad to have the support of great partners like Michelin to make the $25,000 prize pool for this championship possible. But let's talk more about this track, and to learn about this WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca, we jumped into the Hyundai Elantra with the 176 winners from 7 days ago as Corentin Gunas took us for a lap here at this track.
So guys, here we go for a lap around the WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. First corner is just right there, it's flat out. Next corner is the entry airplane, looking at the forward on the right, using all the concrete on the outside to set up the corner, taking double apex there, trying to have tight exit on this one to have traction. I'm looking at the board on the left, second gear on this one. Trying to make it rotate with the brakes. Now this one is third gear as well. Same approach, but by more wide on the exit. More speed. This one, braking between the second and third board. Using all the camber of this one. To be patient on the exit. The kink now, braking on the crest at the two board. Going to carry a lot of speed. Briefly using third gear. Now we move on to cross through, staying on the left side of the track to set up my braking. Brake as possible. Down to first. Using second to have best traction possible. To brain the curve now. To third gear, using the curve on the inside, being patient on the outside, then the exit. Best traction possible. Getting the apex there as well. Now board on the right side. Trying to have a tight exit to have the best traction possible in this area, and using all the track on the exit. And yeah, that's it for the lap around the WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca.
Great lap there with Corentin, who was focused, so maybe not the most thrilling of laps, but plenty of insight. Lewis McLeod and myself were teasing him a little bit. The field, as you can see, is ready for a full formation lap. So for the second time this season, let's run you down through the starting grid here in the Golden State. It will be Johan Harth that puts the Apex Racing team on pole, but it's with the 97 that went through the wars 7 days ago. He's alongside Diogo Pinto, who steps in to the number 70 Team Redline to partner Gianni Vecchio, while Kevin Ailes Jr. takes the 98 to third alongside Sven Haase, who's working his way forward. Maximilian Benecke and Oskari Rine will share row 3 for BMW Team Redline and Kova, with MSI's Porsche inside of Bram van Putten. Both those Porsches qualifying well. Carlos Fenelosa in the Lamborghini 9th inside of Daniel Ferguson, so 2 Lamborghinis up there as well. Reina Talvar disappointed, I'm sure, with that qualifying in 11th, alongside Alexei Nessov with the 90 down there in the order, as well with Jaden Leidig, Daniel Pastor, Ryan Barneveld, and Nicholas Laubish. This is a wild qualifying order. It'll be Dor Esports' Lamborghini inside of the Aspar Ferrari on row number 9. On bookending the top 20, it will be behind them Carl Janssen in the car that finished third 7 days ago, alongside Brabham Esports' Ferrari. Ricardo Rico and Antiola 21st and 22nd. In front of Maniti Racing and Hardpoint by Delta Sport on row number 12. It will be CrowdStrike Racing, Arnage Competition, Race Clutch, Altus, Carbon and Triton that round out the field of 30 GTD cars. And now we turn it over to the 14 touring cars that will tango once again. And it's the Bumblebee that strikes at the front. It's 130.044 for Felix Luding that replaces Kieran Harrison in the 176, but he'll be challenged by the Apex Racing team, who didn't qualify last time out. Florian Lebigra and Avid Hussein, row 2 with Yaroslav Sabula and Ross McFarlane behind them. Martin Van Lozenoord and Carlos Diges 7th and 8th with Impulse, Full Send, Mirror, Core, all the way through the top 12. And then one final row of cars to talk about. Jacob Abel and Scott Michaels not qualifying in the cross-track, racing 133 due to a late driver change. Quick talk about Michelin Cleese to victory, because the field is already heading down into the corkscrew. And let's bring in our pit reporter, Ewan O'Leary.
Yeah, very much a few more unknowns this week than we had last week, because we had Petit Le Mans to set us up for Road Atlanta 1 week ago. There's only been a 1 week turnaround this time, though. It's not a circuit particularly well used in iRacing Laguna Seca, so everybody is in the dark a little bit.
So it's going to be very important with the hotter conditions relative to last week, and we have to wait till we get to start zone. There was plenty of chaos around that last time out. Lewis, quick expectations as we come through the final corner.
I expect Ewan O'Leary is going to be very busy today. I think this is going to be an exciting race. It's going to be a thrilling second round of the championship about to get underway.
So here we go on the best coast of the USA for round 2 of the IMSA Esports Michelin Global Championship. We'll hit the halfway marker. We throw 2 hours and 40 minutes onto the clock, and we dive into the opening braking zone. Already Apex 1 and 2, red line swarmed, but there goes Beneke around the outside. He powers the BMW team red line car in the battle for second. He'll get bullied to the grass, but still maintains the inside for a second. Apex now 1 and 2, red line 3 and 4, as here come the touring cars, Lewis, down to turn number 2.
Yeah, that was a thrilling start to try and get around the outside. We'll see what the touring cars can do and how they can navigate it. R8G on the inside, picking up a position up into second as they head down to the Andretti hairpin as well. Full send, getting just a little bit of contact also coming through. Side by side will lead them up towards the second corner. Full send trying to get around the outside of the Apex car, but still not able to do so. Great start from R8G to get up in the second.
So a clean start overall. I don't think I saw too much trouble through the fields. That means 44 cars will power their way down through the corkscrew for the very first time, but it's crucially turn 6 where you're really, I think, a little bit more scared on this opening lap, with an anti-cut curve playing a big factor. Plenty of drama at the start, even without major chaos, as Pearson's GTD, I think, maybe losing a whole bunch of ground, and that's not even down through the corkscrew. That's before you get to the penultimate corner.
Yeah, tricky bit of the track there, to be honest, not to be underestimated. I'm pretty sure that Rui Sanchez also had the similar kind of issue. Look at Arnage though, big dive straight down the inside, almost getting into the rear left there of the Pearson's car. It's going to lose out to the Logitech Gialtas Esports car with a bit of a switch.
The Ricardo Rico brings the Monaco Esports 88 Ferrari to pit lane to serve a 20-second stop and hold penalty due to a late driver change. That puts them on the back foot, but let's not forget safety cars will bring drivers back into the mix. However, we went caution-free for round 1. Will we go caution-free for round number 2? Let's quickly check in with Ewan O'Leary about the start of this race. And Ewan, you got word that one of the Monaco Esports Ferraris had issues. It wasn't the one that has come to pit lane for the penalty.
Yeah, it was the number 44 that got involved in an incident. Didn't see what happened or quite who it was with, really, but they said it was unfortunate more than anything else. They did have damage. They expect it to be around 5 minutes, and it was pretty undrivable when they brought it in, so not a great start for them.
Martin van Lozenor now fighting off the attention of Impulse, who's now trying to look to the inside of Semper Racing as well. Touring cars always crazy at the start, and not what you'd want to see if you're Yaroslav Sabula being pushed off into the gravel.
Yeah, a bit naughty, but that's what we kind of expect within this touring car category. Going around the outside mirror is going to be just sent wide with that bit of contact. It's going to cost him a couple of positions. Call's going to come through. Tinabushi will not be happy with that, just getting driven into ever so slightly. I know this thing is going to happen within touring cars, but it is very frustrating when it happens to you. But for the likes of Court, they're going to come straight through and be like, oh, bonus, easy, couple of positions gained, thank you very much. I'll talk to you on Wednesday.
At least after this race, they get a week off, so they don't have to immediately deal with the aftermath of what goes on, but there will be some discussions. Biela gets in front of MSI inside of the top 5 as they sweep through turn 4, and that looks like the I was going to say Altus Lamborghini. It's the BS turn of BMW. It looks quite similar from that corner. Team 75's Porsche looks around the outside potentially as well. There is a bit of a train forming up behind MSI initially, and now that Biela's gotten through, they will look to break the tow behind them. And behind that MSI car, of course, let's talk about MSI for a moment, Lewis, because they impressed us with their strategy call to work their way forward last time out, and they were able to hold their position at the front.
Yeah, and again, getting in the beta Alejandro Sanchez, with Alejandro Rui Sanchez did an absolutely brilliant job, looking to do so once again as we continue to ride on board with the Team 75 by Sim RC car at the moment, just trying to kind of nestle away past them. I've got to say, every time we ride on board going through turn 6, that corner, all the corners on the circuit, everyone speaks to the corkscrew and that end of the circuit. Turn 6, for me, 110%, no shadow of doubt, turn 6 is the hardest corner on this track, because that is the one that properly bites when you get it wrong. And so you've got to be careful going through there every single lap. Let's be honest, this is not a short race, 2 hours 40 minutes, and they're going to have traffic to deal with in the not too distant future.
And we should quickly talk and touch on weather conditions, because that is something that has changed slightly since last time out, because we were racing at the end of the year to match conditions for the real world Motu Petit Le Mans. Now we match the 2023 IMSA WeatherTech sports car schedule, and we jump to the middle of May. So it is 43 degrees Celsius on the track, Lewis, despite just being 19 degrees in the air.
Yeah, nice subtle thing there that the Michelin tyres will hate most of that, because it is going to be very, very difficult. Thankfully, they're a very good compound of tyres to be able to soak up the conditions quite nicely, but still, it's going to be very, very difficult. The drivers have got to keep that rubber within its working window, within its operating window, which is not going to be easy when it's 43 degrees. It's driven up in the temperatures, but that's hard.
Sorry, Lewis. Martin van Lozenoord is now running 13th in the touring car class, and I think I'm going to assume that it's related to the fact that Jaden Ladick in the 44 Ferrari is now trying to carve his way back up through the touring cars. Doesn't look like there's any damage, but we did see last week these cars can take a bit of a hefty lick before they have to retire. Of course, these cars revert to the old damage model because of the GTD cars. For those who have seen touring cars by themselves in iRacing, you'll be more familiar with the newer damage model. Second, though, has seen the Apex Racing team get back past RHG in the 108, but already, Lewis, the 176 is running away at the front, and it's Felix Luding, the replacement driver, who's doing exactly what he came here to do.
I mean, I've commentated on Felix Luding a fair few times, more so in GT4s rather than these. But yeah, he's an absolutely incredible driver. Let's see what happened then to Martin van Lozenoord. Ooh, that was naughty. Being sent off.
Not even a GT car.
It was Impulse. Was it Impulse?
Yeah, I think it was, but I wrongly placed the blame on Jaden Ladick there, who only at that point had came across the scene of the incident. So Martin van Lozenoord turfed off by himself, and this time it's the 108. And let's talk about the driver lineups for Romain Grosjean Esports, because of course Romain Grosjean, driver now in the Honda Andretti DHL machine in the NTT IndyCar Series. We usually see them in GT cars, but we now see them in this Honda Civic Type R. You got Florian Lebiger and Valentin Mandanuk in the 108. They seem relatively equal on pace. But last time out, I think we did kind of feel like Martin van Lozenoord was quicker than Ole Steinbraten, who he's paired with.
Yeah, absolutely agree. I mean, van Lozenoord was honestly, genuinely quite incredible last round, but we'll see how it changes. Laguna Seca is obviously a very different circuit. Dura Esports getting down the inside of Maniti to try and pick up that spot. And just to say, by the way, might have seen one coming through the foreground of shot. We are starting to touch the back end of traffic. Pure Sims getting around the outside of Maniti might open the door for Urano to get through as well.
And it will be this first pass through traffic that is the most terrifying, if we're being totally honest. Maximilian Benecke has gone off the road in the BMW Team Redline car, and that's 2 races now in a row where this car's had issues, and 3 wide through turn 6 sees MSI go off for a moment, but they don't lose that much time, they just lose position. But what has happened to the BMW Team Redline car that was running up in 3rd and now finds itself down in 7th spot and fighting through the corkscrew? Yeah,
I've got to say, there's also been a side-by-side with the Williams Esports car that's directly behind this, trying to hang on to spots. I mean, it's absolutely crazy once again out wide. Wow, he is pushing to the absolute limit and potentially even more past it. But Benecke's asking for trouble doing this. That 3 wide up into turn 6, I said it was one of the hardest corners on the track, especially when you're trying to do it 3 wide. I can guarantee you there is no room. Was it contact between the 2 red lines? Oh my goodness.
Diogo Pinto has come in and turfed his teammate, and Jacob Abel in the official Honda Racing HPD entry can do nothing there. He is swarmed, and then it was 3 wide into turn 6. MSI is the one that gets shoved off. The question will be, is there any damage for the BMW Team Redline car? Lasting damage for the BMW Team Redline car. That Honda Racing HPD entry already down on pit lane. I mean, if we're looking at the wheel of responsibility for that incident, can't really criticize anything that Benecke really did. So, I mean, really, we're just talking about the number 70 Team Redline car handing a 1 and 2 lead to to the Apex Racing team.
Yeah, I mean, realistically at that point, I mean, whether they were part of the same team or not, whether they're in the same camp, it doesn't really matter. Diogo Pinto was not alongside. That is the critical thing. Up into turn 5, you really do need to be fully alongside before committing to it. The outside line might prevail just a touch, but yeah, that was a rough one. I feel bad for Beneke on that one. Apparently he's not very happy, which I can understand. It is, as you say, an Apex Racing Team 1-2. They're navigating their way through traffic, and there's a nice little photograph of the Apex Racing Team. Bam! Grab that one as they navigate past their touring car whilst they're running first and second.
Now Nicholas Laubish and Daniel Pastor have both been off the track. We thought this one would be crazier, but we've gotten through 10 minutes without a safety car. That's the Aspar Ferrari that forces, I think, the race clutch Ferrari and Nathan Moore. They're both very similarly colored, if we're being honest. It's just about which angle that you get the cars from. Triton's McLaren has got some damage after starting down in 30th. Still, 10 minutes without the safety car, so at least we've got that going for us.
This is not me trying to bring out the commentator's curse.
I'm trying the commentator's curse.
Yeah, I think everyone knows that at least I definitely want to see a safety car. I just don't think we'll see one. I genuinely don't. I think most of the time you can get back going again. Now, there are certain things that will assist in a sense, a safety car coming out. They can't escape on track. If they have an incident, they cannot just go, oh, well, we're out of the race. I'm going to escape now. You can't do that. That is not okay. So if you blow the engine out on track, you have to essentially wait for the call from race control. Let's see what happened with Aspar then. So it was Corson racing down the inside. Brabham try and get down there as well, diving it in.
Racing incident?
That's a tough one because Brabham had every right to get down the inside. Core maybe left too much room. Aspar to the out. It is a tricky one, that.
That is a weird one. Going back to the Beneke incident for a moment, Ewan O'Leary was trying to listen in, but all of it was in German, so he could tell the tone of voice. There's not much else that he could infer from that one, though. So this first pass through traffic is always the most difficult when cars are stacked up, but it builds gaps, it increases separation, and once we begin the constant flow from there, it will be relentless. Have no doubt about that. Here comes down in towards the technically turn 2, but it's really turn number 1. Ryan Barneveld sees MSI in front of him and that bright green Williams Esports Razor right behind, and maybe it's not a shock that that Williams Esports Razor car is already up 5 positions at the start of this race.
Yeah, I mean, we know what they're like when it comes to positions game. They are ruthless when it comes to picking up those spots. So it's no shock to see this car that we're on board with at least making some form of progress in the early stages and marching their way up the order. A brilliant effort from Janssen so far, or rather not from Janssen so far, it's 14th. But either way, trying to find a couple of extra spots.
And now Florian Lebigra in the first. The leading of the RAG touring cars has been shoved off the road, I think. Crazy start to this race. It is now SimRC, Apex, and Pure Sims that run 1, 2, and 3 in this touring car category, as Ash Sutton will watch on with delight as his 116 that qualified on pole at Road Atlanta but had an immediate drive-through penalty to serve, at least finds itself in podium contention. Here's a look from up above, and it's turn 6, isn't it? And my days, he's lucky he's going to get away with that one.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Oh, Benitez off. Is that race clutch again, or is that Aspar again? It's very hard to pick them between the two. And
we have a first caution of the IMSA Esports Michelin Global Championship. The virtual revolution slows itself down. And Lewis, I think it's fair to say this one was coming.
Yeah, that's a lot of damage on the rear end of that Maniti. Not sure who was off with them. There is the safety car, so Benny will be bringing it back out onto the track. I say back out for the first time of the season, out onto the track. Some teams will be glad to see that. I don't think Apex is one of them.
No, I agree. I think that start was as good as they could have hoped for. You know who this does benefit is BMW Team Redline, who will now get an opportunity to try and understand what the damage is on their car and what they can do to move forward from here.
Which, again, I mean, the only issue with them is they've had a few laps, of course, to work out where the damage is, you know, if there's anything major they've got to deal with when it comes to the actual car itself, but it should be all right. Let's see what happens to Maniti. Is it going to be Apex into the back of it? Oh.
So Apex is trying to turn in, but Maniti is also not.
There was rear damage.
That is the second unsafe rejoin we have we have seen on broadcast this championship, we should point out.
Yeah, it's unacceptable. The big question there, I was like, this is why I thought someone was going to drive straight into the back of it. And that's why when WeatherTech Raceway came onto the scene, I was like, oh no. And then there was a split. I know what's next. I know what is next in this scenario, and I know this is going to be reversed onto the race of mine. So that is a solid big no from Maniti. Bit of a shame.
So,
we get
Lewis,
there, no.
did we catch what happened to Core Sim Racing and Pascal Sticks?
No.
Okay.
We
Well, the
did
good
not
news
catch
is,
that.
I
We
think
can catch
this.
it now.
We could probably catch it now. The good news is I think this safety car process is going to be quite easy relative to any others because there's no one who's going to need a pass around. The way this will work is once the field is completely stacked up behind your safety car driver, as we have dubbed him on RaceSpot TV, his name is Benny. Compliment Barney, the flagman. So what will happen here now is once the field is stacked up, the field will head towards pit lane when the pit entry will open first only for the GTD cars. Then the second time pass, it will open for the touring cars. The third time passed, it opens for everyone. And if needed, we do wave rounds. And then we go racing once again, Lewis.
Yeah, like I say, it's just to kind of keep that strategy just on tenterhooks. Obviously, safety things in real life and whatnot, but in sim racing, it's literally just for the mega bants and for the strategy, which we are okay with. Again, if I was a driver, I'd like, no, I want to pit when I want to take advantage of this. Up here, which like, no, I want this to be as crazy as possible. I know one or two might, especially if you're towards the back end of the GTDs and touring cars. Would you pit? For me, it's a guaranteed no, unless I'm right at the back.
I think the first thing to remember is drive time, minimum drive time is 45 minutes. So that is the first number you're thinking about. We're not even close to getting to that marker. Let's head back down to pit lane, though, because Ewan O'Leary, DJ Clark, and Lorenzo Bonda are scurrying around. We do have one taker to pit lane as CrowdStrike Racing and Race Clutch come in. Not a surprise to see the Race Clutch Ferrari in, but Ewan, talk to us about the chaos that I'm sure has erupted on the radios now that we have our first safety car of the season.
Yeah, well, you'd think there'd be quite a lot of chaos, actually. I was listening into Apex at the time the caution was thrown, and they seemed to be pretty indifferent, really, to the caution getting thrown out. They didn't have a lot to say about it. They weren't that disappointed either that their lead was slashed, which I was a little bit surprised about. Very calm with the situation that they're currently in. But the feeling amongst most of the GT3 teams and TCR teams really is that there's not really that much point coming in right now, because as you mentioned, the drive time's there, that we're not anywhere near the drive time limit. Just for the moment. They've not been out there on these tyres for very long. They've not used that much fuel. So all of the benefits that you'd normally get, it really doesn't apply when you're only 15 minutes into the race. So not many people are really thinking about coming in. But what this is going to allow the teams to do is stay out that little bit longer because people are saving fuel right now.
Yes, and fuel saving is going to be important. We're preserving the Michelin tires as well. I did have a chat with one of the teams, Lewis, before today, and they did indicate that tire wear was going to be significantly higher than Road Atlanta. I think partially because of the temperatures, but also just the surface here at the WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca is abrasive, and that's why there's talks about it getting a repave in the not-so-distant future.
Yeah, it's a very coarse surface around here, but also you've got to remember you're almost always turning. There's not really an actual straight. It's like, yeah, sure, you've got the start-finish straight, but consider Road Atlanta. You've got from turn 7 to the next genuine corner of 10, which, again, is just hilarious banter. We'll discuss more names and numbers at some point, but it's an enormous margin between the two. So you've got a lot of time to essentially cool the Michelin tyres. Around here, not so much. Are we about to go? No, safety car staying out. Never mind. I'll hold off on the panic on that one because we've got the touring cars rather to come in. But yeah, this is a hard one to look after the tyres, big time.
It's an exploration not just for the series with its first safety car, but it will be an exploration for the teams and drivers as well. Some series now do run safety cars in this iRacing world, Lewis. However, the vast majority of these teams will be inexperienced, so they are trying to understand the best ways to work with this. And let's not forget the likes of the Apex Racing team running 1 and 2. They don't have George Simmons running strategy because he's in the McLaren Technology Center getting ready for the US Grand Prix later. Instead, it's Mark Tranter behind the wheel at the Corby Apex Racing team facility, and they've got a whole bevy of race analysis tools and ways to strategize and plan the race.
Right now, though, we don't need George Simmons, clearly. But obviously, we've not dealt with any sort of strategical call just yet. At the moment, things are looking very much on the up for the Apex Racing team. They're in a very, very strong position. but that can change very quickly. They've got Diogo Pinto behind, who was looking faster, I will say. If he can restart this race at full speed, then I think the Apex Racing team do have something to worry about, especially considering he's already been in the wars a little bit with Diogo Pinto. Now, I don't know if Apex Racing team will know that, but he has taken out his teammate, so there's no question that he'll dive down the inside of one of you two if he gets the opportunity. He's looking for a victory today.
Actually, good point. I should go and look at our incident report sheet. I don't think a teammate is going to protest and report another teammate for an incident. Race Control does have the ability to investigate if they want to, but I was kind of just sitting here with the assumption through the crazy opening 10 minutes that the 70 would get a penalty. I don't think it will get a penalty at this point. I think they will be looking to challenge on the restart here.
Yeah, we're seeing race control of some of the stuff that we've seen over the first couple of laps. There's a bit of NFAs, some no further action and whatnot from race control. They've got a bit more to look at. Lights are off on the pace car, though. We're almost ready to get back going again.
Yeah, I don't think any TCR cars, touring cars rather, except Semper Racing, CrowdStrike, had came down. I think they were just thinking about trying to extend the fuel window and strategizing for later in the race. We've slowed ourselves down for the first time. Will it be the last? We still wait for the leader to hit the start zone. He's in control of the field as we get ready to go once more with 43 machines still running. It is Johan Hart, the Frenchman, that picks up the throttle as the green waves once more at the WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. Don't count out that Biela Lamborghini and Sven Haase from charging their way forward as well. But it's Diogo Pinto, your 2022 Porsche World Champion, that goes on the offense, trying to hunt down Kevin Ellis Jr.
Yeah, he's trying to get his way through. You got BS Turner as well. I think there's a bit of smoke out at T1. I don't know if it was anything major as they all pick up the dust between, I say T1, it was T2, between 3 and 4, all dipping 2 wheels out onto that dirt, picking it up. Right now they've got some lap traffic in Pascal Sticks to get around, so Course Sim Racing not having a good time of it, and this is going to be a very scary moment for one Honda Civic.
Oh, and now further back in the field, I think that Kova Ferrari has lost a whole bunch of ground. Ascari Rene may actually be nursing a little bit of damage. Not sure if there is a bit of a dust up further back. You can see it has splintered up, some of that traffic playing its part. Down through the corkscrew they go, and another little moment there for BMW Team Redline. They will drop out of the top 10 momentarily, but these are nervy moments, and after the DNF in round 1, Beneke will want to get out of harm's way. He bullies his way in front on the Mercedes-AMG Williams Esports car.
Yeah, obviously contact between himself and Fenellosa in the Altus Esports green car, just a little bit of contact. Got to say, I think it might have been a little bit more leaning to the side of Beneke, so the two of them dropping back just a touch. It's a frustrating start to the race for BMW Team Redline. The most important thing will be to calm down, to refocus on the race, to know what these races are like. They are dramatic. Just because you're in 10th right now does not mean you're going to finish there.
Head back down to pit lane and let's bring in Ewan O'Leary to talk about what happened there with Ascari Rene, who's got plenty of damage on the rear end of his car.
Yeah, absolutely. Really a lot of damage. And that's the main problem for the moment for them. Unfortunately, can't really work out a lot of what they're saying either.
Sorry, 2 seconds there, Ewan. Yeah, it's Nathan Moore in the race clutch Ferrari that is... Oh, my days, what a torrid day this is. Again, when it rains, it pours. And race clutch, I think, for the 3rd time involved in something or another.
I'm going to go back to Ewan now. I feel bad for cutting across him there.
We will go back in a moment, as that's a big lunge from the Mercedes Urano entry to get past CrowdStrike Racing. Let's head back to Ewan O'Leary and let's pick up what he was saying about Kova's Ferrari.
So yes, a lot of damage to the back of Ascari Rene's car. Well, as I was saying, they speak Finnish, so I can't tell an awful lot of what's going on. However, they seem pretty dejected and not like very much that they're going to be getting back into this race, unfortunately. Hopefully they will, but even if they do, they're going to be a long way back.
To be fair, they are Finnish, so even if they were speaking English, there wouldn't be much to really talk about for Ewan O'Leary. Not sure how much there is for race control to be working through right now. We'll try and keep you a beam of any penalties that come down, but other than the things that we had during the start of the race, pre-race even with registration, it's been clean since then. So let's see the replay, exactly what happens to that black stealth machine. And this is on the restart, excuse me. This is just checking up, and we should remind everyone that you can actually pass on the restarts as soon as the leader goes, no matter where you are. So that was maybe just a little bit of miscommunication and misunderstanding with the number 5 Williams Esports Razor car that, of course, finished on the podium last time out.
Yeah, by the way, just going to say, we've got our first note from race control when it comes to an actual incident, an actual penalty. And it was, for one that we saw earlier on, of course, RAG were the ones were the fact they got sent off. It was Impulse Racing receiving a drive-through penalty.
Ooh, and don't forget, Impulse and RAG had a great fight for third place at the Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta, featured on the VCO Esports social media, so do go and check that one out if you have the time. And do also remember that live timing and scoring is available. If our producer Hugo Luis is the right button queued up, he can get the link on the screen for you. Follow along with Timing 71 and dive into their data analysis tools. Here comes the Mercedes-AMG Team Williams esports car, and these are two manufacturer entries battling out as Benecke tries to fend off the Mercedes.
Also got the Williams Esports Razor car that, of course, Carl Janssen is behind trying to get past MSI Esports. Of course, really Sanchez with a lot of damage on the front and on the rear after that big stack up. You can see how much that car is not going to be tracking in a particularly comfortable way. Shorter into the pit lane, of course, to serve that drive-through. I was almost like building up to that as being like the most dramatic thing until I saw the number, and I was like, oh yeah, Impulse.
We'll head back down to pit lane because Ewan O'Leary, I think, was listening in to the South African in that Impulse team radio.
Well, in fact, it was Lorenzo Bonda who's helping me out, but yeah, Chris Jordan not very pleased with that penalty, really. They just told him basically to take it as quickly as possible and get back out there and get back into the race. They do think that they'll need another yellow flag to get involved, which I think is quite interesting, but I think it says a lot about this circuit, to be honest.
I think it says a lot about what safety cars bring to these series. Let's not forget, for those who are maybe not new to iRacing and the special events, without safety cars, those are basically sprint races. Here, there's something else that can still bring you into play if you have an issue, if you're maybe slower lap by lap. We saw it even last time without the safety cars, Lewis, the way that the race length plays out with the 1 hour fuel window across both classes. It does mean there's some gambles you can take to find some track position.
Yeah, and I will say, if there's one thing around here now, in Road Atlanta, of course, if you're sat behind someone else, you can fuel save quite easily, but you have to have someone else to basically tango with to save that fuel. Around here at Laguna Seca, you don't necessarily need someone else to save a really good chunk of fuel. You can do it by yourself, by just driving smart, by driving well. I think that's going to be one of the critical factors, that we don't know who right now is actually saving a really good amount of fuel. Like I say, it's not as simple as like, well, there's a car ahead of them and they've not passed them for a while, so obviously they're saving fuel. It's not as simple as that. It's a lot more down to the driver, which is why I love this place.
I do enjoy this track. It is Sonoma and Laguna are both probably equidistant to myself. I have only visited Laguna, so I have chosen it as my home track for the time being. Yes, no, it's just how those things work. At least I know my local track. I'm not Zach Sweeney.
That is, well, he does know his local track. It's Saturn.
Okay, so
he just doesn't know my local track.
He doesn't know many tracks. Okay, 30 minutes almost done in this race. 45 minutes is the drive time minimum, and I think the fact that there's already been one safety car is going to plant the seed into some of these teams' mind, Lewis, that when the 45-minute marker hits, maybe it's not a bad call to switch drivers over and to get your next driver into the end and hope for a safety car that puts you at the front.
Yeah, like I said, knowing that the safety car around here is it's the highest probability that we're going to see all season, for sure. And you've got to factor that into your strategy. There is a point, as we can see, Olago giving us a little bit of a wave there in the Aspo Esports. We're not a great start today, but still seemingly high on positivity within the camp. But I say for a lot of these teams, they've kind of, it's tricky. You've got to treat it knowing that there is a safety car potentially on the horizon, but then also you've got to drive to the conditions and the circumstances which you're currently seeing, which is there is no safety car outside, because you kind of got to just treat it like a normal race. I think some people will take some risks, some people will take some gambles, but I don't know on which side of history I'd want to be on that one. I'm almost like I wouldn't want to risk it. I just want to go as long as possible on this first stint and then maybe switch drivers.
I think the reality is that you won't know if you're right until you get to the end of the race, and there's no harm in trying, but if you didn't try, you can't say you did. So as we watch this fight for what's the 18th on back, it's McLaren, Ferrari, and McLaren, Ferrari. BOP did get updated for this round, but we did see last time, of course, the Apex Porsche dominant at the front. Should have been a 1 and 2 if Jamie Fluke had not had the unsafe rejoins of unsafe rejoins after he has already been involved in a separate incident, but you see the Mercedes quite strong as well. Lamborghini's maybe not so bad in qualifying trim here. Van Lozenord's recovery continues as just with momentum he pulls around the outside with a full send 158.
Yeah, it's, like I say, smart stuff there from the full send, deciding to go against their name. Corton basically is lifting off before they got into T6. Definitely can't get around the outside there, so there's no point in trying to leave that one in there. Allow Martin Van Lozenord to get on with it. Next target, the Mirror Esports car, Attila Bushi. Of course, this car trying to recover after the drama earlier on. They were the ones that got sent off by the Impulse Racing team and received a drive-through penalty for that circumstance. A couple of positions being made up, another one on the horizon. Mirror Esports next, but look at those two coming through the back end of shot. Our race leaders, 3/10 separating the two Apex team cars. They're 1 second clear of Team Redline.
So we will see them carve their way through once more. 44 took to the start. We have now 3 retirements, I believe. Door Esports had a technical issue, and that's dropped them out. We'll be chatting with them in a couple of moments' time. We'll catch up with them. Honda Racing HPD, we saw them get involved with the tussle between the Redline teammates. They have retired due to too much damage. Have not seen Kova and Oscari Rene in the 77 roll back out onto track. Here's a look inside Corby. Kevin Ellis Jr. on board, focused as ever. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen a different expression from Kevin Ellis Jr. while we've been watching him drive.
No, yeah, see, once he's out of the car, he seems like a pretty chill fella, to be honest. Once he's in the car, I mean, again, the level of focus, losing out a bit of time there, actually lost out about a second there in total after getting around the Arnage competition TCR car, touring car rather. There you go, I've made that mistake now. we're all making it left, right and centre, that's fine. But yeah, Kevin Ellis Jr. losing out a little bit of time. It's not dragged Redline back into it too much. This is the thing, is that it's just going to it's going to take away when you're going through traffic like this. It's just how these cars are.
Yeah, we'll quote the great John Hindhoff, who may be joining us for the final round of the championship, so just keep your eye out for that. But the traffic gives and the traffic takes. It's as simple as that. And while now the 98 sees the mirrors getting bigger with the sights of the BMW for Team Redline in the 70, it's also the Biela Lamborghini that is posing a threat. Rather torrid round 1 for Biela. Fortunately, did not have to serve a drive-through penalty at the start of the race as we got the Alexei Nesov number 90. Very similar liveries once again on those Mercedes. It's Lewis that makes the mistake this time, but Alexei Nesov goes around, and it's so easy to do down the hill through turn 2 by yourself, but I'm trying to figure out if they maybe were side by side.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, coming down into the Andretti hairpin, sometimes you can just lose it by yourself. I think that's what it's going to be. Yeah, just losing it. Oh, well read from Logitech D'Altis Esports, just getting around it, then having to do about a 3-point turn not to go straight back onto the racing line. It was quite close on the rejoin, but managed to pull up the brakes. I was going to say that it is turn 2, absolutely 100%. You can do it by yourself very easily. As you're coming downhill, it's very steep downhill, and it almost gets steeper as you start turning in, and before it comes back to slightly flat. And it's so easy in that transition period for the rear end to be like, no thanks, just go.
Alexei Nesov reporting the car just stepped on him. I can also report there was a moment through the corkscrew a handful of laps ago with a big checkup that did result in some damage on the front of the Williams Esports Racer car. Bit of a drag race out of the final corner as the 185 full send racing machine. That's where we expected to see that team up and towards the front, but maybe not getting that physical with the 108 RAG Esports car banging doors. That's quintessential touring car stuff on the dive down into turn 2, and it will be Naveed Hussain who rolls the 185 forward to 4th, but now around the inside goes Pure Sims in their Lamborghini. This is the struggle with traffic.
Yeah, that was very, very scary indeed to have sent that one in quite like that. Florian Lebiga going straight back to the inside, coming through T5. Brilliant racing, or T4 rather. Brilliant racing between the two of them. Switching positions once again. R8G up to 4th. Wow, that was... I mean, I'll tell you for sure, as a touring car driver myself, I wouldn't have gone for that. That was so brave from the RAG man.
That is why Florian Lebiga was drafted into that car. Now, I was trying not to bring this up, but I think I have to because I'm enjoying myself way too much. That's a bit of a send from the Carbon SimSport McLaren MP4-12C. Those Honda Civic Type Rs will be hoping they're treated a little bit better than how Romain Grosjean treated the Honda Civic Type R. He was let loose in at this very track, and well, it does. His incident did illustrate the difficulty of pit lane entry here, because it's a corner and then a half.
You didn't want to bring it up. I would have loved bringing it up. I think it's hilarious. I mean, poor guy, but also it is hilarious. Like, genuinely one of the high points of motorsport over the last few years. Bless him. He took it well. He took it like a champ. Obviously, bidding it off into that tight entry into pit lane. Here's a little bit of a switch. Monaco Esports just getting past Arnaud's competition. Ladich making the switch. Is that for position, or is that
I think it is.
Down?
No, it is for position, because of course, remember, Ladich was the one that had to pit early due to damage in the opening stages, but still crucially stayed on the lead lap. So the caution really illustrates why we have it as the element of surprise. It really brought them back into the mix, and a drive-through penalty is just, rather a stop and hold penalty for 5 seconds has just come down for the Maniti 78.
Oh,
Triton. Oh,
see that at the foreground of shot? Triton were backwards. I think it was with Arnaud potentially. There they are. Matej Nogaj behind the wheel. I was about to say, by the way, the reason why I was so shocked as to why that was the position was because how much Arnaud's competition got out of the way. But yeah, Triton Racing, another one having a bit of drama.
These McLarens, outside of the pace discrepancy that they have been self-reporting, just have not been enjoying any sort of luck. It's been as simple as that, and this time it's the Triton Racing entry that will be 28th, the last of the running GTD machines, although still all on the leading lap. We check in with Nicole Foggy. The one car trying to maintain the pressure onto SimRC in the 176, although having said that, that's unfair to Ross McFarlane, the 116, because the multi-time British touring car champion will be delighted to see his esports outfit riding up in third.
Let's see what happened then to the Triton Racing car. He dropped it by himself. Core just into them a little bit. There was nowhere Pascal Sticks could go though, so yeah, fair enough. It's another car that's just dropped it by itself. I've seen a few of those today. This is why I would tend to avoid the GTDs and go with the touring car, because it's a bit harder to lose the rear end in a front wheel drive touring car. Not impossible though, trust me.
You've got cheats in touring car. You can just, if you're ever sideways, stamp on the throttle. Yeah, no, you've got cheats.
Love it. Trust me, it teaches you a thing or two about driving on the... Wait, what? No, not driving on the road. No, to be fair, the touring cars, when you drop the rear, which does happen quite a lot, because you tend to set them up to be way more oversteering than what you're thinking. Everyone's like, oh, mate, a touring car, they're obviously very understeer. It's all front-wheel drive. It's all understeer. Rubbish. Total rubbish. They are genuinely super oversteering because it's lift-off oversteer. And that's how you get it through the corner. You counter that by using the throttle, which means that when you're say you're sideways coming down here into the Andretti hairpin, in a touring car you have to pin the throttle in a braking zone, which is terrifying.
One of our producers behind the scene is Tyler Maxon, who drove for Brian Hoda Autosport in 2022 in the IMSA Michelin Pilot Challenge, and he has just told us all the steering should come from the rear, so you've heard it from the real-life source. It does not get more accurate than that. Let's drag back in Ewan O'Leary for a second and peel him away from his duties on pit lane to talk about the checkup that I mentioned during the corkscrew and what happened to a couple of the Williams cars, Ewan, because they both were involved.
Yeah, they both were involved in the end. The number 55 got a bit of damage to its diffuser on the rear end, but after DJ Clark went and checked in with them, they had decided that it actually wasn't that bad, or not as bad as they were expecting it to be anyway, so that's positive for them. It's a little bit of a problem when they, on the initial turn-in phase, however, they've gotten away with one, which sometimes can happen.
So good to hear that at least they're nursing the damage. The battle between two of the official BMW entries, BMW Team BS Competition and BMW Team Redline. Let's have a quick chat though with Door Esports if we can drag them in, because unfortunately the day has come to an end a little bit earlier. So Jonas Wanner, who steps in to replace Moritz Lohner, and Mikhail Rochelle, who's hopefully a name I did not butcher, will unmute their mics and hopefully have a quick chat with us. Jonas, let's talk to you quickly, because unfortunately you didn't get to get behind the wheel of the car with the unfortunate technical issue that was experienced, but how did you enjoy your experience preparing and experiencing a safety car in this championship?
Yeah, hello, first of all. Was quite intense. I mean, we know that the championship is quite good. A lot of good teams in here, so the preparation was hard. Of course, 2 weeks now. Have been prepared. Yeah, unfortunately, Michi's PC went black, so no driving for me today. At least not in the race. But yeah, was pretty good experience.
And we'll switch over to your teammate to ask about his experience over the course of the 2 races. Yes, today has come to a early and unfortunate end, but that safety car, I mean, how do you think it's changed how you plan your strategy and how you execute in this race, Mikhail?
Well, first of all, I think we kind of improved from last round. I think it was looking good. Also enjoyed all the stuff with the safety car. It's good fun. Actually, the first time I was driving the championship with a safety car. Basically, we were a bit unlucky in the first lap. I don't know if it was on broadcast, but well, we kind of managed to get through the traffic, and it was actually looking good. I was really hyped about the race. I'm just disappointed that my PC crashed actually for the first time. It's a new PC.
I want to ask you a little bit about this car in particular, because you mentioned during the driver interviews last week that you only real previous experience of this car was spinning it at the Nordschleife. Have you become a little bit more accustomed and familiar with the car now?
Yeah, well, for sure. The car is quite tricky, of course. It was a bit of a joke, what I said in the interview. It actually happened, but it's tough. But the more laps I do, the better it gets. And as I already said, I feel like we made a bit of a step into the right direction. Since we're also not too experienced on iRacing as a team. So that's why I'm just disappointed that we can't finish the race. But on the other hand, I'm looking forward to the last 2 races. I think we will be able to do a decent job there.
Or maybe we'll see Moritz Lohner back in the car. Thanks for joining us to the Door Esports Duo. Unfortunately, the day has come to an early end, but we refocus on the live action with officially 40 minutes in the books and less than 2 hours to run. We should mention, Moritz Lohner is not racing here today, Lewis, because despite the fact that he thought his racing career had come to an end in the real world, he got a late call-up and he is back in a prototype, back in the real world motorsports world.
Yeah, it was an LMP3, wasn't it?
It was, yes.
Doing obviously stuff with ADAC over in Germany, which is a great story. Again, yeah, sure, his DTM trophy career's come to a close, but he's a quality driver.
Oh.
And something that we want to see in some racing. Maniti, wow, there's a lot of damage on the front of that car.
Yeah, and the race leaders just almost got taken out. Now, can Gonzalo Vergara nurse this car back to pit lane, or are we in for a second safety car? And crucially, just as we're about to hit that magic 45 minutes for minimum drive time.
Yeah, that's a lot of damage front and rear. Of course, the rear damage might be from earlier, coming up towards turn 6. We'll probably skip over potentially. I mean, I'd just skip over, mate. That's fine.
He's got no steering. He's just literally got no turn, I think.
I think he did manage to get through it on the road. I still would have absolutely just straight lined that over the dirt. Obviously, that probably would have been looked on too kindly from race control, but 100% would have gone over there. Clearly has the speed to get it back into pit lane. He's just nursing it around with an awful lot of damage.
Yeah, there is a bump coming down through the corkscrew that almost just spun that car around, but my days. I think it might also be the wheel that is apparently slightly broken that led to the cause of this issue, as they're side by side for a moment for the GTD lead, and I think Kevin Ellis Jr. has hit the front. The 98 leads once more.
Yeah, it's going for back-to-back victories. Of course, way too early to start speaking about that, but either way, Apex in a very strong position. Kevin Ellis Jr. taking it from Johan Harth for now. And now, obviously, navigating a bit of the nice competition. Big shame, though, for Maniti. Obviously, the rejoin was shocking earlier, but still did not see what happened with that. Hopefully, it's not another rejoin. Let's be honest, this is a change for the race lead.
And that is quintessential Kevin Ellis Jr. and the confidence that he has here in 2022. Went for it, sent it, and let's remember that's how they got the lead. Alejandro Sanchez did the very same thing to the Urano Mercedes in the opening 5 laps at the Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta. Now, will it be the 98 that breaks away? Have they nursed the Michelin tires? Is this when they get their foot to the floor and the pedal to the metal? Look on the left side of your screen. It's a Porsche from a BMW and Lamborghini in the top 4 in your Grand Touring Daytona, while in Touring Car, it is again 2 Hyundais on the podium with a Honda 3, 4, and 5 behind them. There is that battle for second, which continues to be close, and Ross McFarlane is closing in the Honda.
I believe you did Ross McFarlane in there. You were like, oh, mate, the Apex car, that's the one. That's the one that's there. That's the one that's keeping them for company for the race. Rubbish, mate. Ross McFarlane's like, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. I've got so much experience when it comes to touring cars. It is so right seeing pure sims, by the way, in touring car stuff. We normally see them like GTs and whatnot, but you know, with Ash Sutton and whatnot, like it's just so right seeing them in that scenario. And now, like you say, trying to apply pressure to second place in the race, and not a million miles away, 1.2 seconds away from that car just coming up towards the bridge now. That's the race leader in the touring car category.
We'll head to Ewan O'Leary in a couple of moments' time, but with less than 2 hours to go, let's do a quick hourly update. And Lewis, I'll give you the GTDs to start with.
Yes, indeed. Apex Racing Team, well, they've switched positions recently. They're looking after their lap times right now. They're trying to go as fast as possible. Kevin Ellis Jr. taking over the race lead from Johan Half. Diogo Pinto's been in the wars just a touch today for Team Redline, getting into combat with his teammate, but he still sits in third position at the moment. Meanwhile, the top five rounded out by Sven Haase and Rainer Talbar for Bela Racing, Team Euronics and BS Turner respectively. Team 75 Bernard by Sim RC in sixth position with the two BMW team cars, one BS competition and one Redline. They've had a couple of issues today, currently running in 7th and 8th in class. The top 10 rounded out by Mercedes-AMG team Williams Esports, who have struggled for pace a little bit around Laguna Seca, and Altus Esports Green, who round out the top 10 after drama earlier on. They were running up in the top 8, but then they got sent down the order and they run in 10th.
So let's give you then the rundown through the touring car category. It was the Bumblebee of Sim RC after winning at the Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta. This time Felix Luding put it on pole, and it's not been that easy this time. The Apex Racing team still hunts them down. Nicole Foggy this time remembered to put in a qualifying lap time. Ross McFarlane in the Honda right in the thick of the action as well. Then a bit of separation to RAG, who were the standouts in the Honda from round one, with Florian Labigra the best of them in the 108. Full Send Racing sees Naveed Hussein a little bit off the leading pack in the fifth place machine, with Arnage Competitions Hyundai behind them. Mirror Esports and Attila Bushi in the 107 7th, with Martin van Lozenoord trying to recover after what has been a rather difficult day for him. Full Send Racing in the 158 nursing some damage in front of Semper Racing to round out the top 10. That's a look top to bottom at the top 10 in both your classes. 44 started this race, 41 are circulating, and we have had our first safety car of the season. Let's go to Ewan O'Leary then, and let's talk about what the Pure Sims TC machine, the touring car machine, is talking about in the midst of some heavy traffic.
Yeah, traffic really is the big talking point here, and it's not only Pure Sims, by the way, as they go three wide through the middle there. It's every TCR team. Every time that the GTDs are on them, they're right coming through them. The focus is always on letting these cars go through, trying to get through as cleanly as possible. So that's the main focus for them, really. But despite the fact that there is a fight going on for that first position, they were joking a couple of moments ago about throwing the Bigra just in behind and how he seems to be invincible to traffic over the last couple of moments, which I thought was quite funny. But of course, swings and roundabouts over the course of the race. Just a word as well on what Lorenzo Bonda has been searching around for with the Carbon team, the number 66 in the GTDs. Apparently they've had a bit of a spin. The front end is damaged and car pretty undrivable there in the pit lane now.
That is another trip down pit lane. Here's a look at what happened. Ooh, and that is quintessential McLaren nervousness.
That, I mean, to be fair, that's quintessential Laguna Seca, mate. Like, my goodness, we're gonna see a bit more of that. This circuit, I've said before, it bites. When you go off the track, you just slide out to a barrier. It's very dusty out there, and trust me, that dust ain't got no grip. Fastest lap of the race just been set by Kevin Ellis Jr. Bang! He is flying right now, leading by almost a second over his teammate Johan Half, and pulled out 2.2 back to Team Redline. These two cars are in their own class right now. They are flying.
I'll reiterate what we said at Road Atlanta. The fact that there is no Porsche manufacturer entry with Coanda, well, in one ways, yes, it's a shame, but if you have the Apex Racing team flying your flag with what has been a blockbuster 12 months for them, at the end of 2021, not one but two iRacing World Championships, with Peter Behrman winning the Force Dynamics Dallara iRacing Grand Prix Championship Series. That's a murder and a half. Monaco in their 88 Ferrari completely take out the CrowdStrike touring car machine. Not much more to say about that.
No, that was again, slam dunk to be on Monaco Esports roll there. They'll definitely be getting a penalty for that. That was an almighty send. Got to say though, you know how Mercedes and BMW back multiple teams as a manufacturer. See,
Porsche could too.
Yeah, Porsche could too. And right now, if I'm Porsche, I'm looking at Apex being like. Now there is not like a direct partnership, but there are subtle links between Apex and between Coanda. Of course, when you look at VRS and various of the things that Apex run, which is hilarious by the way, because obviously VRS being a setup shop and then Apex also having their own setup shop, which is sort of like, hang on, this I need like enemies or whatever, but then
you can get
all
the
VRS
setups.
Yeah.
And then you can get Apex setups on the VRS site.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, there are a lot of similarities amongst the two of them, and VRS is the big reason why Altus, Coanda, and Apex all have their team houses. Big push forward being made, and the investment from the virtual racing school. This is the second big GT championship that we've kind of had since the World Championships went away. We had the VRS SEO Sprint Masters last year, but that was a GT Sprint series, a very different sort of a feel. I think this is what a lot of the drivers were hoping for. Multi-class, slightly longer races, add the safety cars into the element as well. First safety car here today. I wasn't really sure exactly how it was going to go, but it went smoothly, it went nicely. A couple of penalties to discuss as well. MSI had a drive-through penalty for contact with Kova that ended up leading to the retirement of the 77 Ferrari. Handful of investigations, and of course now including the 88 Monaco Esports Ferrari for a bit of a bonk into the CrowdStrike touring car machine.
Lovely way of putting it. So eloquent with your word usage there, Arjuna. Now we do see that Monaco Esports car coming under pressure from Urano, which is definitely not a CrowdStrike car. No. Can teams stop using red? Like, seriously.
Red and black in particular.
Yeah, please. At least the Monaco Esports car, like I say, it's red and white, so at least I know what it is looking at it straight away. But yeah, red and black, I think we've got a few too many of those driving around on circuit. But Urano trying to make up another position. Laubish, the recovery drive after, of course. Is it Laubish behind the wheel? I thought it was Nesov earlier on. So it
was Nesov earlier on. It is. Oh, we're getting our two Urano cars confused. Maybe,
there is two.
Yes, because Nesov and Laubish usually share a car, but now that Luca Kita has switched from Bila over to the Urano camp, he is now joined up as the regular partner for a certain Alexei Nesov, Vlad Kimichev, the regular teammate, now Nicholas Laubish.
Yeah, I don't have the IQ to be able to deal with that, so that's fair enough. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yes, the other two like switching around, but clearly for Urano, have not had a great start to the day. We can see on board here with Laubish. At the moment, trying to make his way past Monaco Esports.
And let's go back down to pit lane. You know, Leary's listening in to the 91.
Yeah, it certainly was. Nicholas Laubish obviously not pleased with how the race has gone so far, and it's not getting much better either. He was just commenting there on the way out of turn one just how difficult it is to pass around here. He and some of the team members as well thought that he might have had the run on the front straight then, and you saw how close he was, but even that wasn't enough. It just shows what this circuit has been like and will continue to be like for the next just over 100 minutes.
Should have pit stops due imminently, so keep that in mind. Early reports from the touring car category, maybe as soon as 2 laps from now. That wouldn't even be a full hour of fuel before they come in and potentially grab at the very least front Michelin tires. We did not see too many rears being thrown onto the touring cars last time out. We still track this battle further down through the field. That's partially because it's just, like Nicholas says, it's hard to pass, so there's lots of trains, but there's not much going on. The main train that I'm tracking right now, of course, is still the one that has the BMW BS Competition and BMW Team Redline cars running 7th and 8th, because, of course, those are the 2 cars that came to blows within the opening 5 laps 7 days ago.
Yeah, and trust me, anyone who says, oh, well, yeah, again, so before, drivers, some of these drivers are idiots or whatever, they don't remember anything. And sometimes they'll play on that, they'll be like, no, I can't remember, I'm a racing driver, I don't remember what happened. Absolute rubbish, trust me. Racing drivers, they will remember an instant they had 15 years ago. They'll remember the driver, they'll remember the car, they'll remember the livery, they'll remember the corner of the track. So you can't tell me that they don't know what happened a week ago. Oh, they'll 100% know exactly which driver, which team it was that they got into blows with. And trust me, it does affect how you race in this one when you come against them.
And to then add to that point you make and to question you, Lewis, does it matter if it's a different driver behind the wheel, but it's the same car? Because it's not Bruno Spengler that's starting that car off. It's Ryan Barneveld behind the wheel right now.
I think it matters for the driver. I think the driver matters because it's kind of like, you're kind of like, you're irritated by the individual, not by the team per se. And then again, like to say that they're irritated by them is obviously putting words in their mouth. We have no idea. They might have dealt with things like post race and they're pretty happy with how things are, or it might just be like, oh well, whatever is happening, let's just move on anyway. To kind of say that they're irritated or whatever is obviously putting words in their mouth, but still, I'd be irritated. So they're irritated. That's how I see it. As we go back to this train, BS competition, like you said, you were talking about it. BS competition versus Redline versus Williams as well.
Yeah, true. You got the Mercedes-AMG Williams team, and then you cannot miss it, distinctive green from the Williams Esports Razor car that is up a bunch of positions. 9 spots gained by Carl Janssen. It's not a shock to see that car rocket its way up. It's not the biggest mover, it's Kova in their BMW. The 7 qualified all the way down in 22nd. They're up 10 into 12th as they run for the time being. In the touring car category, of course, with just 14 cars, you don't really have too many big movers, but really it's the story of Pure Sims in their Honda, up 3 into the podium spots. Beneke tight, now working all over the back of Ryan Barneveld as they climb up in towards turn 6. And if you're going to get the pass done, I think you're likely to try and get it done in pit lane by executing a strategy, maybe trying to put a little less fuel into the car. We saw that a bunch 7 days ago.
Yeah, and I think we'll see that a fair amount of this was. By the way, speaking of the Williams Esports Razor very quickly, knowing how many positions they needed to kind of gain, obviously you make the decision before you get to qualify. Would Lafayette not start that car?
Yeah, no, that's true, but we got Bradley Esports off at the corkscrew, and I don't know how that car doesn't have damage, because how do you get spat to the right side of the corner without then knocking yourself down into the wall? It is good, of course, to see the Brabham colours back into IMSA competition. Famed green and gold with some fire coming out the back, but yeah, we'll have to wait and see, because I'm a bit surprised there isn't more.
Yeah, bad from it was Pure Sims, isn't it? Not, yeah,
it was.
It's Lamborghini. It's not. I don't know the Apex one. Again, more colour combinations that we just see all the time. It was. I think I did a championship once where it was Apex, Pure Sims, and Vendaval all running white, grey, and blue, and it's like fantastic. Can't pick them apart. Yeah, that's a bit of a shame for Armstrong. He's actually been doing really well in the Rocket F4 Esports Championship that's been running recently for JHR Developments, of course, partnership in that team. But alas, in this one, was looking really strong, was comfortably inside the top 10 earlier. Alas, not anymore. Just how racing goes. Doesn't mean they're fully out of it. They'll be able to rejoin. No damage on the car. Obviously, we didn't see any contact with the barrier, so they'll be all right to continue. I genuinely don't know how you have an off there. I agree with you. How you have an off there like that and you don't clap a barrier.
I think we've had a drive-through penalty come down for Altus Esports in their Lamborghini for the 43, so we saw them coming down pit lane. Not a pit stop just yet, but we are nearing the magic hour where we expect pit stops to become a reality. Still dicing through traffic in this battle at the front of the field. Johan Harther doing what he can. He's keeping the gap at 1 second. He is keeping Kevin Ellis Jr. honest. We do have a taker to pit lane as the GTD window potentially opens. It's hardpoint by Delta Sport and Christophe Herbigno that dive for some fuel and some Michelin tires potentially.
Yeah, into the lane. Obviously, this is too early. Oh no, it is. I was going to say it's too early to do a driver swap. There's not. You can. But you're absolutely right, because it's 45 minutes is the minimum. Driver time 2 hours is or hour 55 is the maximum. So there's plenty of time to switch driver. The question is, do you? We've kind of seen these kind of strategies last time out where some teams, rather than going an hour and then doing the 40, they were kind of doing it backwards, but then one driver's doing the 40 minutes, and then they're doing the hour, and then they're getting out. Some drivers were doing 40 minutes or an hour, and then switching drivers again for the final stint to kind of keep you fresh. You've got to treat this, as much as it's 2 hours and 40 minutes, which is an awkward length for a race, which is why we love it. It is, you kind of have to treat it like a sprint race, but 2 hours 40 is slightly too long for a sprint race, but it's not an endurance. And it's that middle ground which makes it so unique and so difficult. And we love it.
Of course, mirroring the real-world race lengths for this slightly shorter sprint rounds of the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship. Back with this fight for thirds. Sven Haase really flying, I must say, in that Lamborghini. That's not unusual. We've seen Biela find speed in that car. However, the question will be how much more speed can they find? They are very much flying the flag for the Lamborghinis because Pearson's the next best, and they're all the way down in 12th as we ride on board with the German.
Yeah, he's not got any opportunities to pass, but he's certainly not close enough. And we've heard he's got a windscreen wiper going though, so that's Bant obviously trying to clean some of the dirt and dust off of the windscreen, which does build up quite significantly around here, especially some of the Michelin tyres flex being spat off of them onto the cars behind. It can make things a little bit tricky to see. These windscreens get dirty, trust me. So trying to clean some of that off, but smudge it and whatnot. Got to say, I don't think Diogo Pinto's keeping his Michelin tyres in check right now. He seems to be losing an awful lot of speed, and Sven Haase is just closing and just eking himself back into it. Maybe looking after his tyres, maybe playing the long game and focused on when that pit stop is on the horizon. I'm not so sure right now. I think Diogo Pinto's overdone it.
There's a look on board with Sven, who's used to driving something a little bit less responsive. I believe he is a boat driver in Germany. There are GT3 cars which get described as boats. This Lamborghini is definitely not one of them. I must say as well, after finally experiencing the sound of this Lamborghini, it is by far the best sounding GTD car.
Would it be a boat driver or would it just be a sailor? Would you?
Well, he technically drives, you know what I mean? He's not a sailor, he's actually steering it.
Yeah, I know, this is where it's kind of like, as a driver, it's something called them pilots.
That's the word. I was trying to think of what it was.
Yeah, it's in that. It's all in that kind of vein. But I mean, that's an interesting job. But to be fair, this is the thing: is that there aren't many people in sim racing that do this as a full-time job. So everyone's got to pay the bills somehow, and it's just to be fair, doing some job. Yeah, being a waiter in a restaurant, relatable to me. It's a bit boring to hear. So yeah, no, I drive boats, mate, for a living.
He's a barge driver, apparently, to be more specific.
Wow.
So
it's something different.
Yeah, I mean, maybe, that's I don't know how any of that would correlate over to this world, but hopefully there's not too much that does. So past officially the hour mark, and we have not seen a major pit stop at the front of the field just yet. However, there has been talk on pit lane about strategy gambles, and once again, just like we saw in round number 1, potentially short filling in this first stint UNO Leary so that you can do your driver swap later on with better track position behind you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of the two ways of going about this race, really, with the 2 hours and 40. You've got kind of that spare 20 minutes, if you like, from what we see normally in these races that just run to the top of an hour. You've got that spare little bit of time. So do you want to take that short pit stop on your first or second pit stop? And where do you fit the tyres in? Nobody seemed to have a real consensus on when to take tyres, how many tyres to take, and when you should take them throughout the race here today. So that's another thing to bear in mind. What I think it will mean, though, is that over the next 40 minutes until between the first and second pit stops really happening, the race order won't really look like what it should do by the end. It will be a bit of a confusing 40 minutes or so.
Wonderful shot down through the corkscrew on board with Diogo Pinto as he sees Haase get closer and closer. Now, surely if you're Haase, you'd like to try and go longer, but maybe it's the undercut that will get you some track position. Do either of them peel left? No, they'll stay yet another lap. And I just wonder as well, we talked about the hour being the magic number for GTD, Lewis, but this is a track where you're not maybe as much on throttle relative to Road Atlanta, which may shock a lot of people. So maybe you're just not burning through the fuel as much as we were a week ago.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those, like I said, scenarios where you can. It's a track where you can save fuel yourself. So there is that to gain over as well. We've had the safety car up, so they've gained fuel through that. Realistically, around here, I wouldn't actually be too surprised if a team or two have saved enough fuel to even get maybe even slightly close to the 70-minute mark for a stint. That might be a little bit too far, but I'd suspect, we're 2 or 3 laps away. We'll see them all kind of pitting on some slightly different laps depending on how much fuel they've been saving. But if I'm the 70 right now, I'm kind of thinking, these Michelin tyres, they've kind of overstayed their welcome ever so slightly on this car, and I want to get some brand new ones onto the vehicle because it's looking like it's struggling. It's looking like he's the boat driver today.
down through the corkscrew. Let's take a look then at some highlights out of the first hour of round 2 of this 2022 IMSA Esports Michelin Global Championship, because it has been exciting. Yes, on the start it was fairly frenetic, however fairly clean as well, both across the GTDs and the touring cars as we got underway. But it was here for Monaco Esports and Urano that they tangled. Other than that, the field able to get on through, but they were splintered up very slightly. Bit of drama for Martin van Lozenoord with Impulse, who subsequently got a drive-through penalty. But this is where drama erupted for both Race Clutch and Maniti, 2 of the cars involved in a handful of incidents. Redline teammates coming together, not for the first time in the sim racing universe, ended up claiming Jacob Abel in the Honda Racing HPD entry as a victim. But this moment for Aspar in their Ferrari first saw the Race Clutch Ferrari sent off the track, then this bump with the Maniti 78 saw further contact with Race Clutch. The car was damaged, and we saw the first safety car of the virtual revolution. It was an Apex Racing Team 1 and 2, a checkup further back as we got back underway, and after that we have battled our way through the subsequent almost 50 minutes of racing. Plenty of fighting in the touring cars with Full Send Racing and RAG doing battle. The likes of Monaco and Altus Esports getting involved in the tussle as well. But as Maniti had to retire from the race, and nervy moments for your race leaders who came on past. But then the swap around, and a bold one, as Kevin Ellis Jr. reclaimed the lead of this race as the 98 hit the front once more, Lewis McLean.
Yeah, that was, again, for an hour, that was absolutely crazy. Just how much has gone on. Brilliant stuff to kind of catch up with that hour. So an hour and 35 left to go. Right now, we've had our fair share of drama in an hour. We've had a 2 hours and 40 minutes worth of drama in an hour. I'm assuming we've got a fair amount more left to come. It is still our Apex Racing Team 1-2. It is still SimRC out front in the touring car category, but they do have a little bit of problem on their shoulders because Nicole Foggy right there trying to attack for the race lead. The touring cars is really where those Michelin tyres are going to come into it, because it's going to be really hard to keep them in the window for an hour.
Here's your touring car leader, and the gap has come down not just to the Apex Racing Team but to RAG as well. Do remember, if you want to stay involved with all things IMSA Esports and all things related to the IMSA Esports Michelin Global Championship in 2022, scan the QR code on your screen as the touring car leader navigates the tricky pit entry and dives to pit lane for the first time today. Well, here comes SimRC, and now we see what strategy gambles the touring cars will throw at us.
I mean, I don't know if it's too much of a gamble, but I think, yeah, we will be doing front tyres. Rear tyres, I think, will remain on. The Michelin rear tyres they don't really wear too much on the touring cars. We've got BS Turner onto the lane as well. Team 75 also in the back. Was it Full Send, I believe I saw at the top of shot as well? So a few entering right now. It's a busy time in pit lane.
And the number then from here is 90 minutes. I think you do your driver swap now, because I don't think you want to hypothetically do 45. Yeah, I think Reiner Talvar and Phil Denez will do exactly what I would have done. With just over 90 minutes to go, do the driver swap now, do an hour stint, and see where you land and put as little fuel into the car as possible, because who knows what safety cars will do to the rest of this race, Lewis.
Is this Phil Denez's home track?
It is. Oh, this is literally his home track. He's right down the road, basically.
Yeah. I was going to say, like, to be fair, just go out and drive the real thing. It's fine, mate. Obviously, busy man has been Phil Denez, and now jumping into this. This is in sim racing and in motorsport, by the way. Now jumping into this again, and a bit of work to do, but BS Turner, he's having the car handed over in a really good spot. Now we know the speed of Phil Denez, so I'm genuinely very excited. BS competition coming out directly behind them.
I made sure this morning I did not wear my BS Turner shirt so that there could not be any bias in the broadcast booth. However, everyone knows my opinion on the BS Turner livery. Here is your race leader, Sven Haase. Well, was saving fuel behind Diogo Pinto despite the relentless pace that he still was managing to apply. So it will be the Biela Racing Team that extends a further lap as cars work their way into pit lane.
Yeah, obviously a bit difficult there for the number 70 to spot his box. Diogo Pinto coming in between the two Apex Racing Team cars. There is your race leader then at the moment within the GTD category. will be going for this one extra lap. Suspected it will be in the pit lane at the end of this lap. Now, will the undercut work out in favour? Obviously, brand new Michelin tyres going onto those cars, leaving the pit lane. Did you see that? Redline just overtook both the Apex Racing Team cars. Redline's already gone out of the pit lane.
Very short stop there, 23 seconds, and I think Diogo Pinto is basically fueled for about 45 minutes so that they can get to the driver change window to get Gianni Vecchio into the end of the race. Quick update on touring car, because the Apex Racing Team have been able to extend the stint longer than the rest of the field, but Pure Sims have stopped for 5 seconds shorter than Sim RC, so now they have the net race lead as we see Beeler dive their way to pit lane. Once again, the unique race length is making pit stop windows far wider than they would ever be normally.
Well, safe for Apex Racing Team as well. The two GTDs that were leaving the pit lane, they got a bit unfortunate on pit exit. They just had one of the RHGs sat ahead of them. There was nothing they could do. And obviously, you can't overtake on pit exit. Not only for one, it's against the rules, and for two, it damn narrow. Very much so around here.
Nicole Foggy gets out, Guile Valero gets in, and Valero was flying at the end of the race last week. The Apex Racing Team duo are trying to work their way through this traffic. Was there a moment there for one of the Apex Racing Team cars? I saw a big wiggle. There, though, is Diogo Pinto, who is the net race leader. It's a short stop for Sven Haase as well, 23 seconds as he releases himself from the limiter.
Yeah, going for short stints between the pair of these. Apex trying something slightly different. These two taking a bit of a gamble, going short. Obviously, it's going to be a tighter line through the Andretti hairpin from Sven Haase, so it'll be second position on the exit of pit lane. You've got Laubish as well behind. Has Laubish stopped?
I don't believe he has. He has indicated 39 laps. Ricardo Rico also yet to stop in the Monaco Esports number 88 Ferrari. So there are a couple of cars who have already made pit stops in this race, who have been able to extend, but we will track them. Now, there's a couple of things I want to try and clarify. Who's taken tyres in touring car? Because there's an expectation that potentially Ross McFarlane with the short stop has not taken front tyres. Sim RC, I think, likely have at the very least taken the fronts, while Guile Valero, 35 seconds, driver change, he has definitely at the very least taken fronts, if not rears as well, depending on that time. But the Apex Racing Team with 38-second pit stops effectively as Pure Sims gets pushed wide at turn 6, and now all the way off the track as they run towards the corkscrew.
That's why that right there is absolutely why I take a touring car in this, because you get sent off, you're in the gravel, it's all panic state, and you're just like, right, my right foot pinned to the ground. That literally is pedal to the metal when it's go, 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 and you are just trying to wrestle it back onto the circuit. I mean, a bit of a moment there for McFarlane. Of course, our race leader in the category right now would have lost out a little bit of time. I think he'd be a bit frustrated from it, but still hanging on to the race lead.
90 minutes to play. I'm still not sure what the Apex Racing Team is thinking, but Mark Tranter behind the scenes, I'm sure, has got something in mind as the Pure Sims Honda. Look at the line that they take, squeezing the CrowdStrike Mercedes as they funnel down through what is technically turn number 2. Yes, we should probably have a chat about this now, Lewis. Apparently turn 1 is the left-hand kink. A corner.
No, absolutely not. Turn 1's the Andretti hairpin. Sorry, mate. I knew we were going to talk about this at some point. It was like, when? I mean,
it's you and me.
We'll both agree.
Yeah, it's you and me. It's a track with bad corner numbers. It was always going to happen.
Turn 1's not turn 1. It's a fast kink, I'll give it that, but it's not a corner. It's totally flat, and you wouldn't even really think about it. The first corner really around here is that hairpin at the bottom, but of course, this being America and it being an American circuit, that's not going to hold up. There's a kink on the start from the straight, and so that counts apparently.
That was a send from Sven Haase. I'm not sure if he just misjudged the closing speed to the TCR in front, touring car in front. Yes, there's clouds of smoke out of the nose of Sven Haase as he works down in towards what is real turn number 1, past the Aspar Ferrari that stays well out of harm's way. This, of course, will flip around. They've taken the shorter pit stop now. They'll do the driver change with about 47 minutes to go, because you don't want to leave it too close and put yourself into trouble of falling afoul of drive time regulations. Oh, great cockpit eye, driver eye view that Sven Haase experiences from the Lamborghini. And this is turn 4, crucial, because turn 5, crucial because turn 6 is the most difficult and scary corner at Laguna Seca, despite what people say about the corkscrew.
Yeah, big time, 100%. That is the scariest corner. I mean, it should be turn 5. Let's be real here. But like I said, 100%. The corkscrew is a difficult corner, sure, and it is an iconic, picturesque, amazing section of road. But it's not the hardest corner around here. For one, you've got, like I said, turn 6. That's incredibly difficult. But then also, what we've just come through there at the rainy curve, I'd also argue that the rainy curve in turn 10, way harder than a corkscrew because the rear end can let go at any point. Hey, even the Andretti hairpin is arguably harder because the rear end can let go into there. The corkscrew's certainly not the hardest part of this track, but it is the most fun. I'll say that. There is something about it. It's very special.
It is a lot of fun. I do enjoy flying my way through. The trick is, as you dive down the hill, there's a tree that you spot as your reference point for your steering. That is how you determine if you're on course or not to take the corkscrew in the most efficient way possible. Back down to pit lane. We've not talked with Ewan O'Leary maybe as much as possible just because there's been so much chaos going on. But Ewan, in terms of touring car and the calls for tyres, Pure Sims don't think that tyres were worth it in the 116, and they have got track position and are building the advantage.
Well, I feel like we're seeing the opening moments of a developing story here, really. What I can tell you for sure is that Pure Sims didn't take tyres there. RHG at Esports certainly did in both of their cars. The rest of them, it's a bit of a mystery with regards to most of the gaps, to be honest, in TCR are coming from the difference in fuel loads. There's a surprising amount of different fuel loads actually being taken on that it's even difficult for the teams themselves to get a handle on by the sound of it just for the moment. So that's not making things very easy. But yeah, as you say, they're chatting at the moment, just monitoring the situation, wondering how effective are these tyres in terms of putting new ones on at these pit stops. They're not totally convinced based on these opening minutes, but we are very early, of course.
Yes, no, the stint has still got a long way to run for these drivers. McFarlane will have to step out of that car. Gunes has jumped in behind the 176 as well as Gal Valero into the 199. So there are driver changes across the board for them. Still waiting for the CrowdStrike 133 to come to pit lane, by the way. So they will drop outside of the top 5 where they run for the time being. That is the run down through the double apex final sequence. Left side, you can see the stint lengths if you're not following live timing, which you can follow by following the links in the live chat as well as up on your screen in a couple of moments' time. You can track the strategy, which drivers have been behind the car and who still needs to maybe do some driving time. As that fight for the lead continues to rage on. Lap times, not that different between Apex and these two at the front, which I think just goes to speak to the speed that Apex have in those Porsches.
I mean, it's also down to how well these two have looked after their Michelin tyres, same as in the touring car category with Pure Sims. Just to speak very quickly as they navigate their way past Impulse, in the touring car category, RHG Martin van Loosenoord has just made up a position on Scott Michaels, of course, who's driving in the CrowdStrike racing car. I know they're yet to stop, but being the CrowdStrike racing car, yet to stop recently. Obviously, they did in the, I think it was through the safety car period. It might be just very much in the early portion of the race. Sure, there is that. But realistically, just making up an extra little position. So recovered to 4th place right now, which is not bad for the RHG team. Obviously, they'll be wanting more. They'll be looking at the podium, but they are putting themselves in a position where it's back on the cards, potentially.
Everything is still on the cards if we get another safety car, but it has settled down since that first one just over an hour ago, the first one of the season. Here's a look at live points as they run right now, and Team Redline are putting themselves back into the championship equation by virtue of the run that they're having right now. Yes, it would entail them still grabbing the lead of this race, of course, because these are points as they run. It's the 91 Urano Data Sport car that still owes us a pit stop that will drop down as well after their great run through round number 1. There was a RAG Honda slightly shortcutting the corkscrew there, but no harm, no foul. But you get the sense of the way that this point system works, Lewis, paying out in both qualifying and the race, of just how important being at the front consistently is going to be, as this time it's Biela running off the track.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say that was a very scary moment for Sven Haase coming through the penultimate corner there at turn 10. It's so easy to do. It's caught out some of the very, very best in the real world of motorsport, and there's no reason why it couldn't catch out some in sim racing. Ewan O'Leary quite rightly earlier said that this circuit's not actually... Oh, never mind! Sven Haase getting into contact with the Logitech Gialtis Esports car coming through the first corner. That's going to cost him a whole heap of time.
Well, it's not the first time Sven Haas has found himself embroiled in trouble. We'll grab a couple of looks at some angles before we start to work our way through the commentator's judgment, but it will be race control that has the ultimate say in this one. And now Sven Haas has got a 3.5 second gap to close back up. I don't think that's going to be too much of a worry for him, though, just knowing how fast he has been. But drama at the front and up above we go. To be fair, the Altus car does cut down quite aggressively, but Sven Haas is not also that alongside, but I think he's just expecting if Altus lets one car by in the battle for the lead, they'll let both cars by.
Yeah, I would not put any blame or much blame really there on Sven Haas. For what I said, you're trying to get past backmarker now. Obviously, a backmarker cannot just jump out of the way. Fair enough. But realistically, I think in that case, the Altus Esports car probably should have moved. It was a tight battle for the lead, and now it's separated. Big push over to Team Redline, and now they're leading by 3 seconds, as you say. Laubish not too far off behind the rear of that one. Just a little bit of drama. I was going to say, though, as I was midway through what I was saying about you and O'Leary saying earlier on the broadcast, about how this circuit's not really raced too much in iRacing. Now, obviously, that's not about generally, because generally it's one of the rookie circuits. It's used in everything, as we can see the Altus Esports car rejoining. It's used, as a rookie, it's one of the first circuits you race. But in actual esports competition, it kind of gets neglected because it's classified almost on iRacing as a rookie track.
I think he's had contact with one of the Apex racing cars. Yeah, and there's going to be more. Is there? Well, that's why Johan Arthur's now. Yeah, I think the snigger that I just heard in my ear tells you all that you need to know about that one, because now Johan Arthur split from his teammate by about 2 and a bit seconds, and Tristan Iglesias is a lovely guy, but I don't know what's going on. Yeah, I don't know what's going on there.
Yeah, like I say, nice guy. Almost don't really want to comment on it too much. But yeah, it's not a good look. I'll just say that. So into the pit lane, Ricardo Rico comes. Monaco Esports down onto the lane. That'll be their second pit stop of the day, because obviously I think they were one that pitted under the safety car. Is that correct?
No, this is the one that had the penalty at the start of the race for a late driver change. It was the 44 that was the one that had the issues on lap number 1 that saw them head down and still miraculously stay on the lead lap, and then proving just how important the safety car can be, because they're right back in the thick of things. There is Diogo Pinto, the 2022 Porsche Esports Super Cup champion that currently runs himself at the front of the field. And in fact, last time by, grew the gap to Sven Haas by almost a full second. He wasn't the fastest car on track, though. That honor went to Kevin Ellis Jr. with a 1:19.999, the only car in the 119s.
Yeah, very curious to see how this goes. You can see how dusty it is. That's why the windscreen wiper's going. You can see by the ridge around where the windscreen wiper, obviously that's what's been cleared, how dirty it is on that side. If you don't use that windscreen wiper, then yeah, it's going to get very hard to see inside the cockpit. It's so dusty around Laguna Seca. So Diogo Pinto has had a great 2022. This race, though, it's interesting. It kind of hangs in the balance. Obviously, Redline in a really good spot at the moment, but Apex being slightly off strategy, we'll see where they go. Or, running something slightly different. We'll see where they end up later on. There is Laubish then into the pit lane.
Surely you do a driver change now. Surely, yes, indeed. Yep, so it'll be Kimichev that takes over in the Urano Data Group number 91, and he will still owe us a pit stop with probably around 15 minutes to go. He will just be hoping for a well-timed safety car to bring him into the mix, as there's a CrowdStrike number 4 that will see Sam Michaels jump behind the wheel. This is MSI versus Kova into the corkscrew, the BMW piling on the pressure, and it was the Porsche that worked its way forward with the calls in strategy. This time around, though, they are down 11 spots, and Sal Vitalens finds himself in a fight for what is 18th position.
Yeah, it's not been the greatest day for MSI Esports. Okay, that was naughty. That if I was in our nice competition car, I'd be a little bit like, oh, okay, partner, next time you come round, I'm going to make your life a little bit more difficult if you're going to squeeze me off like that. And you've got to remember, I said it before time and time again when it comes to esports competition, is that as much as we don't like it, there is some truth in it, especially when it comes to competitions like this. Part of it is a popularity contest, and I'm not joking about that. Is that if you go through, like we just saw there, if you irritate another car as you're passing them, then they are not going to make your life easy the next time you come round. It's all about playing the long game. They're trying to be a good GTD and lapping cleanly and not taking any major risks until late in the race, at which point kind of do what you want, really. At this point, there's no point in making enemies right now.
Yeah, and to your point, Ryan, until keeping it clean to the late of the race, I was just noting that a couple of the teams have just been warned for track limits.
Who was that?
Diogo Saliba in the Arnage McLaren, surely the one that went around as we ride with Matti Siepler. He'll wait for the opportunity to back up tentatively, and he does it as safely as possible. His car is in trouble, and I think he's going to require the tow from race control, which I think all but guarantees we are getting a second safety car here on the best coast of the USA.
Yeah, problem is he cannot turn right now that he's got out onto that dirt. If he'd have... This is not what I'm recommending him drive basically back onto the racing line. But this is just saying if he'd have reversed back onto the track and then been able to carry on from the top, he might have had some chance. Let's see what happened. So he's gone for a spin. Triton's come round. Brabham's come round. Got back going again.
Oh!
Razor
Williams Esports Razor, and confirmed there is the caution. It's not a surprise to see that Arnage will indeed be allowed to now return to pit lane.
Sticks in pit lane.
And that was great timing from Pascal Sticks to enter just before the pit lane would have been close. I think they'll do the driver change and they will get their service done.
Oh.
Now we slow down because the leader is the one that will be caught by the iRacing safety car. So just give it a moment. We will sort this one out. But
I was just wondering what happened to the 71 there.
Yes, no, just we'll calm down. The main chaos was at the corkscrew. Down to pit lane for a second because Leary was listening in because this has changed the game with strategy once again.
Yeah, especially in TCR where I was listening to the leaders there, Pure Sims Esports, who had a 10-11 second lead, and their strategy was working out very, very well indeed. Until this safety car came out, very, very frustrated about that. Steam Ledger kind of reassuring his teammate Ross McFarlane that they had to try something, they had to throw the dice in some way, so they can't be too annoyed. It's just the way that the cards have fallen here on this occasion, but there's no doubt and no getting away from the fact that this has really compromised their race now, and it puts all of a sudden those teams that were struggling like Apex not so long ago, they're all of a sudden right back into it again. So it has changed the race entirely, especially down in TCR.
So we will stack up behind the iRacing safety car and then we will begin our process. This time we may actually have some wave rounds to talk about. So we will have to wait and see because there are a handful of teams in both of the classes that find themselves one lap down. There is Benny pulling his car out and getting ready to lead the field around for a handful of laps.
Oh, he's not waiting around, is he?
Yeah, I mean, he's trying to challenge Bernd Mailander for best safety car driver in the world, that's for sure.
Goodness me, I thought he was genuinely coming out of pit lane. It definitely like he was about to hang the rear end out there. My goodness me, I've seen the AI pace car making some mistakes. I had one at Bristol once that flew past everyone and drove straight up into the barrier. Which I honestly trying to keep a straight face in a race like that is almost impossible. I genuinely thought that's what we were going to see.
So Arnage Hyundai will wave itself around because the iRacing pace car will always pick up the overall leader of the race. And now as we stack ourselves up, we get ready to begin the safety car procedure. A reminder for those that missed the first caution of the race within the opening 15 minutes. The first time we pass pit lane with all the cars stacked up behind the safety car, it is just GTDs who are allowed to take to pit lane. The second time passed, it is open just to the touring cars. And the third and final time we pass the pit lane under the safety car stacked up behind it, anyone can come down. And as soon as that is all sorted, the wave around procedure begins. If you are in front of your class leader, you are allowed to regain your lap. But we should point out, Lewis, you do have to hustle to get back around to catch the rear of the queue. By no means are you guaranteed to be stacked up at the very tail.
Yeah, like I say, to be fair, always in these kind of scenarios, in real life, I get it. You kind of want to drive around safely, drive around slowly, marshal, be on track and whatever. In sim racing, no. As much as that the yellow flags come out, if you've got clean air ahead, you're blasting it around this track as fast as you possibly can, because you treat it like a racing lap essentially, because you want to catch the rear end of the train, you want to catch where everyone else is until you have a car ahead of you. That's when you can kind of like tone it down a little bit. Outside that, you want to catch this train. You do not, like I say, if you're not a part of this train, you can be left out to dry in a very bad way.
So, we chatted earlier with Gary Swingle from Michelin North America about how Michelin uses simulation to drive tire development. Let's investigate this topic just a little bit more. So we're joined once again by Gary Swingle, the senior virtual tire designer at Michelin North America, and we talked a little bit earlier about how simulation plays its part into designing a tire. But how much work exactly goes into developing just a single tire model in your world, Gary?
That's a complicated question because we develop different tire models for different applications. Some of our customers are really focused on noise and vibration models, while if we're working with the racing world, it's all about handling and vehicle setup. Some of the models are all based on physical measurements of the tire, while other ones we have to rely on finite element models and advanced material characterization in order to properly design a tire virtually that doesn't exist yet. Additionally, at Michelin, we are also the creators of an advanced tire modeling software called Tame Tire, where even the thermal response of the tire is modeled. Therefore, tire stiffness, grip, and overall response change throughout a corner, just like in a real tire. With our closest partners, both in IMSA and WEC, the tire models are sort of constantly evolved as we receive additional vehicle data and driver feedback. And I would estimate over the years we've spent thousands of engineering hours with our key IMSA teams, and especially with the new GTP class and IMSA and Hypercar on the WEC, many of these teams have been rolling virtually on those tires for years now. So really for us, model correlation is critical when these car makers and race teams rely upon us to specify components that are fixed very early in the development process.
And at its crux, you and iRacing are trying to solve a very similar problem, which is to model a compound that is very flexible in the real world in this simulation environment. However, the advantage I think that you guys have compared to iRacing is you're not limited by consumer hardware. So when it comes to the future and you look towards future developments in this world of simulation, what exactly do you think you and the team at Michelin will be focusing on?
That's really a great question. We have a saying around here at Michelin that a pneumatic tire is the most complicated single part to simulate. In fact, the tire is not just a single part, but it's made up of dozens of different metallics, textiles, polymers, and they're all assembled together in a process that's really more complex than carbon fiber layups that people talk so much about, especially in racing. And then on top of that, the virtual when we make a virtual model of those tires, they're subjected to hundreds or thousands of cycles of high deformation, nonlinear load cycles. So it's a very complex system to model. We at Michelin are focusing on improving the representation of that virtual contact patch as a function of all the external parameters, whether that's camber, road surface, and even curbing. And especially one of our really big focuses is accurately modeling the wear and degradation of the rubber compounds in the tire. That's one of the really big keys to having that real racing experience, not only in things such as iRacing, but for our race teams as well that want to design a vehicle setup that is good for the largest part of a stint, not just at the beginning and not just at the end.
Great insight from another member of the Michelin team. Last time we talked to someone with the title of Motorsports Marketing Manager. Today we talked to someone with the title of Senior Virtual Tire Designer. I'm just saying, Lewis, why don't we have cool titles like that?
What do you mean? What's my title?
I would like a title that is Senior Virtual Shouty Man RaceSpot North America. It sounds a lot more formal. Anything but caster.
Literally anything but caster.
I think you and me are pretty agreed that is not the right word. We are commentators.
Cannot stand the word caster. I know, because you said something earlier about it, yesterday about it in a different broadcast. I was like, no.
Okay, quick word down on pit lane, because we only saw a handful of cars come in this GTD class, and I think you and O'Leary, you were as surprised as we were up here in the booth as touring cars now roll to pit lane.
Yeah, very surprised really after listening to Apex when that safety car came out, and while they were just driving around deciding between themselves what to do really, they felt as if it was more of a risk to stay out than it was to come in here. So that's what they've done, but only 3 others joined them. The consensus in TCR, as you're seeing on your screen right now, seems to be that a lot more are going to come in. All the cars on the lead lap, that being 9 of them, all of them but 4 came into the pit lane right there. Not unexpected to see Pure Sims in. They're going to kind of try and roll the dice again here, much like what they did earlier, and try and get themselves back up towards the front. But there's no getting away from the fact, as I said 5 minutes ago, there's no getting away from the fact this safety car was probably worse for them than anyone else in this field.
There are plenty of strategy implications here, and I'm just postulating, and I'll put this out there into the world. Are the Apex Racing team thinking that they'll go to the end without an extra pit stop from here? It's a long, long gamble, but I think surely that is what the thought is going through their mind. Maybe they need a safety car to help them out, but I tell you what, let's quickly, while we wait for the final lap of safety car process to come to a close, let's bring in Diogo Saliba from the Arnage McLaren number 18. That was unfortunately the cause of why we slow things down. Diogo, an incident through the corkscrew. Just talk us through what's happening behind the wheel.
Hello, Arjuna. Yeah, it was unfortunate. It was just the McLaren has their things. I just broke a bit too late, and the car just went into the corner, and then you're upside down in corkscrew, you know, you just want to get out of the way, but I still got tapped, and then the rear suspension was broken, and that was it. Very unfortunate, yeah.
In terms of the fight itself with the safety cars, how does it change how you think about fighting out there on track and strategizing for trips to pit lane?
It changes it completely. I think it adds another dimension to it. You're a bit more careful going through traffic, because you know that what happened to me now happened previously and can happen again, and you just take that into account, drive as fast as you can, but it's just another layer you have to take into account, yeah.
We'll let Diogo go. Thanks for joining us from behind the wheel of that number 18 McLaren, because there are a couple more takers to pit lane on this 3rd and final trip around before we get the green-black out there. And Lewis, I think this is all about the fuel saving, because I think this is just about okay. As late as we can go, let's make our life as easy as possible when it comes to the fuel games.
Yeah, I mean, I was almost questioning why more didn't come in. Obviously, in this scenario, they're kind of looking at it thinking, look, we need to, if this is going to be tight on fuel miles, Apex have come in again. Obviously, just to take that extra couple of litres. Love it. Absolutely love it. They're trying to just, again, give themselves all the opportunities. This is 100%. All the teams that have pitted now, they are going to the end of this race. It is a fuel game now. I am all about that. Love it. Love the strategy.
So, pit exit will get opened manually by race control. And that's why they're waiting. Pit lane is at an incline at the exit. So they are waiting for... Yeah, now they'll go and they'll race their way to the back of the pack. So,
oh, there's contact. BS competition got into the back of Altus.
Yeah, they got to be a little bit more careful. I think we're still waiting here for the wave around. We'll get another lap probably under caution before we go back racing, because there are still cars in front of the Bela Racing GTD. That is the overall leader. My days. A fuel mileage race. In some ways, it feels like we're calling an Indy 500 again, Lewis.
Oh, mate, love it. Love myself this. I mean, don't get me wrong, some people don't like the fuel mileage game, and that's fair enough. But what we've got is this tantalising prospect of not 100% knowing that those can make it to the end. Urana coming in. To be fair, from what we've seen earlier on in the race, with how the safety cars affected it, whatever, I genuinely think if you pit now, you can get to the end of the race. For me, I think to going back to what you and O'Leary were saying, obviously having a little bit of listening to what was happening with Apex, hearing that it's more of a risk to stay out right now, I agree. I think it's more of a risk to stay out because you're guaranteeing yourself a return to pit lane later on in the race. Now, sure, you've got the track position, fair enough, and that's great and all, but you're guaranteeing another trip down to pit lane, whereas an hour and 3 minutes around here, of all places, I mean, if this was Road Atlanta, I'd have a couple more questions about trying to make the fuel mileage.
Agreed.
Around here, you can absolutely do it because you can do it by yourself.
these are the gambles that define series with championships. It's all about that. There are a couple of cars that came in this time to pit lane. I don't think that was technically allowed. It will all depend on if race control had opened the pit entry or not. But we are very much not hearing what race control is doing. We are focusing on trying to figure out who is where. Touring car update. Apex Racing Team now in front of Arnage, in front of RAG. But RAG is now the first to have made a pit stop. It's another class where things are absolutely all sorts of mixed up. And SimRC finds itself down in 7th.
Yeah, a big chop and change within the touring car category. Of course, our championship leaders, like you say, dropping down the order. There is Quentin Guinness at the moment, obviously having made that pit stop. I don't know. I will say, part of me, this is the whole thing of these kind of races, is that part of me is sort of like, oh, I wish we hadn't had that safety car, because then it would have meant that this would happen with strategy and that would happen with strategy. But then the other part of me is like, I love this. I absolutely love this. This is what I've said to you time and time again. I think it's why I love the fact that we have this in the series, is that whilst we have some of the esports stuff, whether it's on here on iRacing or whatever, whether you do an endurance race where there are no safety cars, and that's great and all. Sometimes I'm like, I don't want them to have safety cars in it. I like the idea that we have some races where there are no safety cars, but I like that we've got races with it. I like that we get to see that spice. Now we're starting to see a lot of the GTDs coming into pit lane. Beeler definitely came in. Team 75 by CMRC. I think Williams Esports might have come in also. Yeah, big time.
Okay, just been checking with race control. The pit lane is open. Pit entry is opened by design, so this is as expected. But the more laps that we get under caution, you're just giving opportunities for drivers to come in and cycle to the back. And this is also, of course, that window for driver change. You don't want to have to do that under green flag conditions, because that would be a long old wait. We'll head to Ewan O'Leary, because he's tracking those that still would owe us a pit stop as we play right now if we started at the end of this lap.
Yeah, it's becoming less of a fuel race, really, and more of a case of we've got 1 hour to go, and a lot of these people can make it to the end fully pushing. So we've got a real fast 60 minutes coming up, really. Only MSI Esports Cova in their number 7 and the number 44 Monaco Esports white cars are not able to go to the end in the GTD category. But other than that, everybody else can. So effectively, well, I've got a question mark over the 62 actually, but either way. Basically, the 98 is leading, in my opinion, and I think they can make it to the end almost without or with minimal fuel saving, maybe none at all. So this is becoming less of a fuel race with every lap that this safety car stays out, because they're just not using any basically right now.
Yeah, this is best case scenario. It is going to hurt Biela, who I think at best will end up down in 16th position as Patrick Heinrich is forced to take over the car from Sven Haase as we dipped below an hour left to go, Lewis. And I mean, what a dramatic round 2 we've had after a crazy, exciting round 1. We had to have a little bit of drama, I guess.
Oh yeah, and again, we're not done. There's some more drama in this race. We can all feel it. We're nearly 2 hours done. Got just under an hour left to go. And if there's one thing to guarantee in this championship, and we'll see this every single round, is that all of the laps of racing will just have drama. It's what's going to be one of the key factors in the championship race, is staying out of drama. If you want to win this championship, you've got to do that consistently. There's a couple more come into pit lane, just trying to get those extra little bits of fuel just to tick them over towards the end of the race. It's going to be, yeah, like I say, anyone that's taking on extra fuel at this point, they're essentially guaranteed that they don't need to save fuel at all, that they can just push 110%.
So I think maybe we'll go racing, not this time, by the next time. But I do remember, if you want to follow along with all things related to this 2022 IMSA Esports Michelin Global Championship, scan the QR code on your screen. The wonderful team at IMSA has done a great job of collecting all of the relevant links that you will need, and don't forget, the VCO social media will keep you posted on race updates during and after the race, of course, but also with championship standings and weekly news as we build. It's a short championship, of course, Lewis, 4 rounds, and we're done with half the season in about 58 minutes time.
Which, again, this is the whole thing. I'm 50-50 on it. Part of me is like really disappointed, because I'm kind of like, oh my God, I'd love to do a full 8, 10, 12 round championship. Maybe 12 would be a bit too far, but like 8 would be a great number to have of this in future, maybe next year. But then, sometimes, when the challenges go on, sort of the drivers kind of get towards the end of the challenge and they're like, nope, I cannot deal with another round of this. I'm done. I'm stressed out. 4's a good number because it leaves you wanting more. And, already to say that we're approaching the halfway point of the season is a bit sad, but it just shows how excited, how happy we are all to watch it, how happy the fans and whatnot, all the drivers and whatnot. This series is going down great within the community.
So you are starting to see cars getting the wave around. Back down to Ewan O'Leary for a second, because Ewan, you seem to think, I think we know that a lot of the cars can make it, but the Apex Racing team cars do think that they're good. Hardpoint as well thinks they're good in their Porsche.
Yeah, absolutely. Somewhat surprisingly, as I said in my last update, I had question marks over the number 62 Brabham Esports. Also had questions over the number 99 as well, but Lorenzo's just been listening into the guys at Brabham, and we believe they think they can make it. I understand how uncertain that sounds, but maybe they'll be able to get there. And the number 99 as well, from what I can gather from them, they believe that they will gain 3 places because of the top 3 that have to pit, although now to top 2 because IMSA Esports have just come in.
More of the drivers roll their way in, so we'll have more of a shake-up. It's now the Cova BMW that will be at the front, but they're 23 laps into a run. They will definitely, I think, have to come down, albeit now likely with just 7 or so minutes to go. Same with the Monaco Esports 44. Those are both cars with double-digit gains. The touring cars will now have to drop to the back of the field by virtue of how the wave around has played out. Still, I think, as much confusion for us up here in the commentary booth, Lewis, as there is for the teams as they try and figure this all out.
Oh, it's not easy to... it's not hard to confuse us. By the way, the pit lane exit, doesn't it close? Or was it, is it open totally now? Because I did just see Salva Talons and MSI Esports did just come straight out of pit lane, which I'm not sure...
Yes.
Is that okay?
No, at the very least, I don't think they should have been allowed to exit pit lane. The question that I think someone else has just sent me a message is, should they have entered the pit entry itself? But I did get word from race control that is as designed. Still waiting to sort this all out, though, so give us a handful of moments and we will go back racing for, I think, what will now be a 50-minute dash to the end.
Yeah, like I say... the fuel number game, what we were talking about this being a fuel saving, fuel mileage, etc., etc. Each lap that passes removes part of that from the equation. You're able to save an awful lot of fuel going around here at the moment. The moment that we get back racing again, some teams might be a little bit concerned with where they are on the fuel mileage, but I think most really should be okay. We're still expecting a couple to require a stop. The 744, as you were hearing from you, definitely need to come in. The 99 believe they're good for it, which I'm very curious to see. I mean, that would be a crazy result for Hardpoint, for Brabham as well. I mean, it's 3 of those, if they can get to the checker flag even remotely near where they are, what a day it would be.
So the TC cars, touring cars, are one by one getting funneled to the back, and I think maybe next time by we will get ready to go racing. So quick update then in GTD as we see MSI Esports returning to pit lane. It's Cova from Monaco Esports, the 2 cars yet to a box. Behind them, Apex Racing, Brabham and Hardpoint, the provisional podium as it sits right now. If you had told Brabham and Hardpoint by Delta Sport they'd be up there, I think they would have been very, very shocked. Behind them, the second of the Apex Racing Porsches with the Team Redline BMW behind them, and then both of the BMW official teams, BS Competition and Team Redline, and the 89 and the 71. BS Turner rounds out the top 10. Bit of a switch around still happening in touring car as they sort things out. But I do think it will be Gael Valero that is your leader once we get this all sorted out.
Yeah, it's like I said, this is a bit of a stressful time within each of the cars. Is you're kind of like, you're ready to go racing and you're ready to jump into it. Some of the teams rather have done a driver swap recently and thrown them in, and they've been doing laps around here thinking these tyres are getting cold. My mentality is getting cold and I just want to get on with it. You've got to trust the system though. Read what it says on the screen, drop back to the positions that you need to drop back to, let whoever needs to go by. It's just a stressful time as a driver because you're sat there being like, come on, we want to get on with this,
I think everyone wants to get on with this.
Too right. But this thing, you need to make sure that it's right, that it's fair, and that it's even and done by the rules by race control. Do you take a while with this? And I am okay with it as long as we get back racing nicely. Lights are still on the pace car, so we've got at least another lap.
Yeah, I think the touring cars are still just getting sorted into their proper line before we get underway. Do remember as well, this caution system is very much more designed for the ovals, and we are jerry-rigging it for multi-class capabilities. It's also not that much... It's not that unrealistic when you look at the length of some of the safety car periods in the real world as well, so it is just one of those frustrating things the drivers will be dealing with. I think they may be more frustrated just by some of the questions around the process as they experience it for the first time here today. That is likely the case. Back to you and O'Leary down on pit road, because this lengthy cycle of cautions going on now for almost 15-20 minutes here. It has meant that plenty of teams who came in at the very first time of asking are more than good in terms of fuel.
Yeah, just was listening into the number 98 team there. Kevin Harris Jr. and Alejandro Sanchez just chatting about their situation, of course, from third place right now. They were the first team to come in, the team that came in on the very first safety car lap that they were able to, and that is turning out to have been the right decision in the end. Just heard Kevin Harris Jr. say that they're 6 litres short on fuel now, and they pitted the furthest away from the point we are now. So everybody is absolutely fine to the end. I'm very sure of it, other than the top 2, of course, that we keep talking about. And it's not going to be a fuel race at all. It's going to be an absolute dash when this race goes back green.
Ooh.
It was already a bit of a dash, 2 hours and 40 minutes. By no means is it a long race compared to the Endurance Cup races that IMSA hosts over the course of a calendar year, but 50 minutes on the clock, yeah. If we didn't already have chaos here today, I think we're in for a little bit more of it, as I think we are finally getting the touring cars sorted out. Likely, this time, we go back racing.
Cautions breed cautions, question mark?
Let's not talk about that.
If we do have another one, I would guarantee it will not take us so long to filter it and sort it, so the caution would definitely not be this long.
Because just like in the real world, we have the shortened safety car process in the 15 minutes after a full course caution. That also applies in the final 30 minutes of the race. It will make life a lot easier, for being honest, Lewis, because the pit lane has never opened.
Yeah, and that's what sort of is going to help race control in the snow. But who's going to be good on fuel? Who's not? Who's going to be racing? I think the safety car is it coming in this time by? I'm not sure.
I see the lights back on, so I think one more lap for the touring cars to just make sure they're all in the right order, and we are actually good. So I tell you what, let's see if we could quickly dial up highlights of what we've seen so far, because we have brought the safety car out for a multiple times so far today after going caution-free at round 1 at the Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta. Matty Cieplo wants to get on with the action because he leads at the front. Hour 2 was about the gambles in strategy for touring cars. Sim Marcy had led for all of the first hour and a bit, but they spent some extra time in pit lane. They dropped to second and now drop even further back. It was this call on pit stop, though, that saw Diogo Pinto and Team Redline hit the front, with Biela right behind them. But a nervy moment for the Pure Sims Honda up through turn 6 as it ran wide and had to strangle it back into control. Down through the corkscrew, plenty of cars testing the limits of the track. But then there was this for Tristan Iglesias, as he was lapped first by the BMW Redline and then the Lamborghini for Biela. Not sure what happened there, and then contact with one of the leading Apex cars. First through turn 1 and then a spin for the Lamborghini. Iglesias not enjoying about a 30-minute period. And then the reason for why we've slowed things down so much. The Arnage McLaren almost stranded down through the corkscrew. He gets clipped by Carl Janssen. And the Mercedes, the Mercedes for Williams Esports Razor, the car was stricken and the caution was brought back out, Lewis.
Yeah, it's been a crazy run in the race thus far. It does leave us with our leaders in each of the categories at the moment. Obviously, as the safety car is out, Kova, the number 7. Obviously, they've lost a car already. But Matty Cieplo heading the field at the moment ahead of Elias Riker. And then the big name that we're really kind of focused on this one, Alejandro Sanchez, race winners a week ago. Looking to go back-to-back. It's Apex, though, leading in the touring car category. Gal Valero, Ricardo Ferreira, and Valentin Mandanak, the top 3 within those touring cars for Apex, Arnage, and RHG. But who has the fuel Who has the strategy? Who's going to be going to the checkered flag?
I mean, we had so many questions about the strategy at the start of this caution cycle. I think the reality is we have less questions about it now, and I think we have a lot better of a picture that everyone should be good. One final lap, official confirmation for race control. I know I've said that a lot, and Lewis, I think, is quite exasperated in our little green room area, but race director has messaged me to confirm next time pass, so we have a firm number. Back down to Ewan O'Leary then on pit lane to quickly just talk about this, because Ewan, the reality is most cars should be good to the end, and if not, the question is why aren't they?
Yeah, well, that would be the question, really. Yeah, I'm absolutely 100% convinced everybody can make it to the end because of what I heard from the number 98 team, really. Although we are hearing that maybe there are a couple of teams who do need a little bit of fuel. It's one to watch, but I really can't see how it's a problem. But I also, then again, just going back to that safety car phase and the very first laps of it, I can't really see how most of these teams in GTD decided that staying out was a good idea. I mean, I know it looks obvious now with hindsight. Obviously, everybody looks like a genius, but I mean, it looked like the obvious call at the time. Apex said it was the call with the least risk, and it's turning out that they've been absolutely correct with that one. So I'm just gobsmacked that more of these top sim racing teams didn't decide to come in on those in that first lap of the caution period, the safety car period, and as a result, a lot of these teams, I mean, all but 4 of them, have really screwed themselves over.
Getting word from Lorenzo Bonder with like Ewan O'Leary scurrying around on pit lane with DJ Clark. Monaco Esports in that 44, who've been on track for 26 laps already, think they only need to find around 6 liters to get to the end of this one. So it's closer than we maybe thought, but I think it is a big struggle with still 45 minutes to go.
6 litres is too much for my book. 6 litres is a lot. You're talking 3 laps of fuel in 46 minutes. That's an enormous amount of fuel to save. So a few questions. Again, those behind should be okay. Lights out on the safety car. This time, we're about to go back green flag racing, and hopefully, fingers crossed, we've seen a couple of safety cars out there today. Hopefully that's the last time that we'll see it out on the racetrack.
Remember, actually, we're basically guaranteed shortened yellows from this point forward, because there is about a 30-second window where we could get the regular full course caution. From here, it will be quick. Matti Siebler, Elias Riker, what do they have in terms of fuel? What games can they play? It's all about Apex Brabham and Hardpoint behind them as we enter back into the starting zone. We get the action back underway for the WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca round 2 of the IMSA Esports Michelin Global Championship. The green Mercedes is Carl Janssen, scored a lap down. He will grab second net on track and now try and get in front of Siepler and grab his lap back. But this is the nervy moment on the restart. Almost 3 wide out of turn 2.
Yeah, Johnny Vecchio managed to get past Jamie Fluke as we look back into the pack. We've got Hardpoint here looking to get some crazy, decent result. We're another drop back a couple of spots in the race start. Obviously, tyres struggling just a ton. There's going to be contact there. That could be the Altus car off. Patrick Holtzman trying to get through. Altus losing out a few spots as they head up towards turn 5.
No traffic to really deal with for the touring cars just yet, of course. It will be just like it was in the race start, with all the GTDs packed up with one another. When we reach this battle, the touring cars, the 176 and Corentin Gunes up the inside of Impulse and Marcel Jokenheim up into turn 6. And it's Corentin Gunes knowing that he's in the top 5, but there isn't much time to let the leaders run away.
Yeah, got Triton coming through them as well, so a bit of GTD traffic. Corentin Gunes has gone out a little bit too wide, and once again that Impulse car is going to retake up the spot. It's a Lantra versus a Lantra. Gunes is going to try and get around the outside of the corkscrew, a bit of contact between the two, and he's straight lined it. This could cost him a couple of positions, because you've got RHG going around, you've got Pure Sims going around. Was that worth the risk, trying to make it around the outside of one of the hardest corners in American motorsport? I think the solid answer is no.
Trying to channel the spirit of Alex Zanardi was Corentin Gunes there, as we also look at GTDs already rolling into turn 1, as now SimRC trying to work past Semper Racing as RHG and Pure Sims squabble off the corner. It's a bit of a drag race as we see if the Honda Civic Type R or the Hyundai Elantra will be able to close as Semper Racing is behind them on that dive down into turn 1. Semper has a look. RHG around the outside. Can Steinbratton try and squeeze Team Ledger? The Australian's having none of it and fires his way forward into 6th spot, but a bit of a breakaway forming for the top 3 in touring cars.
Yeah, very feisty battle this one then. kind of not letting anything sort of stick right now. It's going to be Semper down the inside. Like I say, RHG is going to be out wide. SimRC is going to come straight back into this. It's a tight little fight between this gaggle.
It's some fantastic stuff, and this is all about what touring car racing can display on a weekly basis. Check out RaceSpot TV. These drivers duke it out week to week in these very cars. Into turn 6 side by side. The RAG car will force into submission the machines behind as a swap around for second in GTD. The Apex Racing 98 gets in front of Monaco Esports in the 44. Alejandro Sanchez is on a flyer.
Well, I don't know if you kind of saw that from the RHG car there. How did Steinbratton managed to catch that car? It was completely sideways in the braking zone coming up towards the corkscrew. Managed to wrestle that one down and get back going again. You can't really slam on the throttle there. Here we are, though, looking Apex Racing Team up to second place. Obviously a car between themselves and Kova, who are our race leaders at the moment. That will be the Altis car that is a lap down. So Alejandro Sanchez will need to navigate that one pretty soon, but this is definitely a car that is looking for another victory.
Back down to pit lane. Let's check in with that 176 after Corentin Gunes slid back to 8th, Ewan O'Leary.
Yeah, absolutely. We saw that move. He was attempting that one at the outside of the corkscrew and was absolutely furious that he wasn't given any room on the outside. I can't tell you literally any of what he said, to be honest, but it was quite rude. He was absolutely furious about it, and now really downbeat about his chances in the race, expecting Simper Racing to really fight them hard, as all of these cars are. And he's writing himself off already. I wouldn't write them off just yet, though.
And again, it's the Lamborghini of Altis that's putting itself into trouble. Tristan Iglesias, surely the message needs to come through the radio. That's the race leaders trying to fight around you. Get out of harm's way, and let's not make more contact with the Apex Racing Team Porsches.
Yeah, no way on this earth should that have been 3 wide heading into there. He should have jumped straight out of the way. BS competition, get up in the 6th spot. But you're absolutely right. We've got a 3-way fight for the race lead between Kova, Apex, and Monaco Esports. That Altis car needs to get out of the way. It just needs to not be a part of this fight. I get what they're trying to do, but trying to make that 3 wide when you're a lap down, unacceptable. I would be furious if I were Alejandro Sanchez.
Khan Modov has now been turfed out wide through turn 4. There's been so much action in the early stages, and the 99 hardpoint entry that crosses over into the virtual sphere in partnership with Delta Sport is now well and truly outside of the top 15 after starting up in the top 5 on the restart. To the corkscrew they go once more with about 14 minutes to play. Kova still in front of Apex. I think if you're the 7, if you're Matty Siepler, and if you are really that close on fuel, Lewis, surely the wiser thing to do would be to try and tuck into line behind the Apex Racing Team Porsche and at the very least consolidate second.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, obviously, eyes are on the victory here. Yeah, that's it. Eyes are on the big prize right now. They don't care about second or whatnot. It's so easy to do, obviously, thinking of the championship, but still, we've got Brabham and, of course, the one of the Urano Esports, in fact, 2 of the Urano Esports cars battling it out here, trying to get past the Brabham that are just slipping backwards inside the top 10. It's not been a great day for Brabham that have been racing elsewhere in the world of sim racing and trying to grab something for the team. Down the inside, though, almost a brush between the two. That little McLaren battling with the mighty Mercedes, trying to hold it off, but not quite, because straight to the inside, coming up towards T3.
Remember, every position pays points in this championship. So Brabham, if they're not going to grab a top 5, well, maybe they can still grab a top 10 by virtue of how the strategy cycled them out to the front of this restart. Seeing them note that the CrowdStrike, a touring car machine, has been now pushed wide off the road. They've lost the train at the touring car field. Here's the 71 and Patrick Holtzman looking to the inside, and there's contact. The McLaren gets shoved off into the gravel, and I think Lewis McLean expected it.
Yeah, as soon as I saw that car, as soon as I saw that red line car looking to the inside coming towards turn 6, all that's going through my mind is, I've tried this one before. It don't work, mate. It's not going to work. And yeah, it didn't. Hunter McDaniel being sent off there. Obviously, the Brabham car could have turned in. Fair enough. Don't know. Didn't see it from the right angle. But got to be said, in that scenario, when you're looking down the inside of a corner like that, there is only one outcome, and it ain't good.
It ain't good indeed. This out of the final corner, though, sees those Urano Mercedes starting to move their way forward. Yes, Vlad Kimichev is a lap down, but he's now all about the support for the 90. There's the RaceSpot TV replay of that moment as McDaniel then had to spin up the real tires. Unfortunately, it's not like it is in the real world where he probably would have been beached on the outside, and that would have guaranteed us yet another safety car. that is one thing we should point out. While we have safety cars, Lewis, and we've had a handful of them, today is big snap for the Monaco Ferrari, who fortunately will get well and truly out of the way. Now that's the 44 that was up in second place on the restart, but we aren't throwing safety cars for every little small thing. We are trying to make it only for things that we need it for.
Yeah, that's a big shame there for Monaco Esports. Obviously running in a really good spot. They're in third at that point before that spin. So easy to do on the exit. Turn 6 is what makes such a brutally difficult corner. You've got the sausage on the inside, you've got the dirt on the outside, and I mean, you saw how quick that car went. Yeah, sure, you could probably say maybe whilst he was out on the track, he probably basically was asking for it out there. But you've got to go quick through there, and kept it pinned. And once it goes, it goes. It's unsavable once it lets go. Great view here of Salva Talents. Great arms and hands. Nice. No words. Salva Talents. Great view. I mean, what a lovely hand. But still, running up in a decent spot, trying to attack for further positions right on the rear end of Team Redline in that 71 right now. Of course, Patrick Holtzman behind the wheel. That is the battle for 8th.
Plenty of fighting. Of note, Bruno Spengler into the BMW BS competition car. His first round of this championship did not go well, the 2020 IMSA iRacing Pro Series champion, but he is very much an accomplished sim racer and is going to prove that out on track with his speed. Here is Johnny Vecchio and Jamie Fluke starting to get dropped by Alejandro Sanchez. It very much now becomes the question of, can Matti Siepler use those around him in the form of Alejandro Sanchez to save some fuel, because he might actually have some gap and some buffer to play with to hold on to second spot. Jamie Fluke on the charge, and after the mistake a week ago, he wants redemption.
Oh my goodness me, you don't look down the inside coming into the rainy curve. Jamie Fluke, like you said, he's such a nice guy outside of the racetrack. As soon as he's on it, mate, this kid is ruthless. He is absolutely on it, and still doesn't have any track maps next to him. So how does he know where he's going? Clearly absolutely on it. By the way, there was a bit of contact in the touring car category. Semper
right?
Racing, Pure Sims getting involved with Impulse as well. The three of them two of them at least, making contact into the corkscrew.
I read my timing screen wrong. It's SimRC that's taken advantage, and now they're in fifth, excuse me. Yes, they're 9 seconds off the race leader, but it's what they would have wanted, because the second half of the race is just not played out in their favor. That's the 97 working past the full sent Honda as third and fourth, still ducking back and forth as the Mirror Esports Hyundai proves to be a bit of an obstacle for Jamie Fluke. Back down to Ewan O'Leary, Lorenzo Bonder, and DJ Clark on pit lane reporting. Ewan, there's a report about Jamie Fluke just trying to think about how to make the right pass to get by without costing himself too much time.
Yeah, I think that is there's an element here for the 97 of just taking the taking the points that they're in right now for the fourth position, because of what a disaster that was into the last race. They just want these points, to be honest, and so they want to get this position as quickly as possible, of course, but they don't want to lose very much time. They're only 5 seconds off the lead right now, and I guess they are feeling that a podium is very possible, maybe even a Apex 1-2 if they play their cards right.
Tell how shocked Ewan O'Leary was there.
Yeah, the Northerner and Ewan O'Leary came out there, that's for sure. 34 minutes still left on this clock, and Matti Siepler has now got a 2-second advantage at the front. I will be sending the messages to the spies within COVID Tower Control to see if we get anything. Here's a look at a RaceSpot TV replay. Yeah. Pure Sims make an absolute hash, and to be fair to Impulse, there is only so much room that they could have given because of how that played out, and yeah, that is all entirely on Steam Ledger there.
Yeah, and also there was a bit of air between the two of them when they came to corner. I think they were going to make contact anyway on the apex. It was very much a tight line. I still think Impulse weren't really giving enough room. Meanwhile, we'll see Monaco Esports on their return up the order. Or not, or they are. No, yes, they are. They have got past Triton, so a little bit of connection there.
Yeah, that is a car that has been warned about its connection issues, and so it's a scary time for the drivers as they try and work past. You see how tentative Triton is, not even thinking about exiting the corner side by side behind them. The green and gold McLaren trying to recover as once again more issues for that 88 car, and I think now maybe finally we'll just let the Polish McLaren slide down the inside into the corkscrew, but not without a bit of a fight, it's fair to say. Finally, without too much more, it's done, but it's not ideal. We've got a car off, Bruno Spengler, as well as Full Send Racing. And that is an upside-down zebra, and cars will be entering pit lane. We are guaranteed the safety car, I think, and we're guaranteed a shortened safety car. Wow. The fact that Michael Polishek has brought the Full Send Racing car to pit lane, I think, tells you all you need to know.
I mean, wow. Wow, that's really trying to one-up Romain Grosjean in the pit entry. I've got to say, Bruno Spengler, Real World Racing drivers, really doing the work. That is an almighty crash on the entry into pit lane. Obviously, he wasn't coming into pit lane, but something has happened, and that car is upside down. Still no safety car from race control. It's been allowed to come back in.
Okay, so yes, they do have to request permission, and I think race control elected that it was safe at the time to withdraw them from the track. And we do not have another caution, because that would have really checked it up. Back down to Ewan O'Leary. There's two trains of thoughts coming here as side-by-side Williams down the inside into the corkscrew. We'll go back to Ewan O'Leary, but the BMW Team Redline car loses out to the Mercedes, Lewis.
Yeah, this is major in these battles. Like I say, it's a tight little train in all of this, and like I say, all the positions give out points. You're trying to gain a 1 or 2 or 3 or whatever that will give you that little bit more. It's not been a good day for BMW Team Redline, at least the red car that is the number 71 that Holtzman's behind, looking to pick up another couple of positions, but going in the wrong direction ever so slightly here. Drop down to 9th, needs to get past Luis Naja because Salva Talens has checked out from this group.
Now we head down to Ewan O'Leary, and what was going on there? I think a couple of different messages going over the radios.
Yeah, absolutely. I was listening in Tobias' competition in the number 89. You're seeing the incident there. They believed it was Zoe Urano's fault, and they were even laughing about it themselves, to be honest, about how that ended up happening, because it was slightly strange. Urano believed that they were turned in on, as DJ Clark was listening in. The team behind the scenes keep repeating to the driver that it wasn't his fault, it was just reassuring him to get his head down a little bit and not worry about that incident. So two very different trains of thought, and who would have thought it? Two teams disagreeing on who was at fault for an incident.
I'm sorry, I know you can hear us laughing on this broadcast, but that crash was pure physics, mate.
It's one of those peculiarities in sim racing. I can tell you, I'm looking at Lewis across the pod right now. He is struggling to contain himself right now. He is really trying hard, but we continue to watch the Urano and the MSI cars working into the final corner. Control yourself, Lewis, because you're going to get me going as well. This is the fight for 6th position.
One of the first broadcasts with Zach Sweeney on iRacing, there was a crash that was just like that, and I was describing. It was about 6 o'clock in the morning. I was really tired, and it was at the coming out of the second Degner, and as it hit the wall, I was like, I know what's going to happen here. And it just slowly rolled over, and I was like, yeah, that's perfect. I don't see anything wrong with that. And I was just like, I don't really know what else to say, but wow, what an unfortunate experience at the S competition. I'm having a good one as we head to the final half hour of this race.
You say that, but the BS Turner car is still up inside of the top 5, and
that's true.
If Kova, as we think, is short on fuel, it becomes a 4th, and they're still in with the fight for the podium, and they will be the ones looking forward to the Apex Racing team and Team Redline. Great view of the hands once again with Salva Talens. You get the Michelin Man at the very least. That's what he's trying to do for us, Lewis. He's trying to highlight the Michelin Man on the MSI Esports jersey.
I respect that. I respect the craft. I mean, he's been looking after the Michelin tyres all day. The MSI car has indeed. Not in the spot that we would expect. They had a bit of bad luck, a bit of issues when it came down to the pit lane sequence. They've got the speed, though. They're using the rubber well, so advertising what they're good at the moment. You know, they're very good on their Michelin tyres, and they're showing it.
Haven't really had to talk too much about Michelin tyres overall, despite all of our hype at the start, because I think we kind of thought, okay, yes, there's more potential for cautions, but given what we saw in round 1, maybe they keep it clean. The MSI Esports Porsche down the inside of the Urano Mercedes, and easy as you like it, Salva Talens that has worked his way back forward. You remember about an hour ago, Lewis, when I was talking about how this was not such a good day for MSI Esports?
Yep. Yeah, no, they've. I mean, to be fair, we're going to see this a lot this season, where it's like, oh, it's a terrible day, they've won. Right. That's just how these championships are going to go. Yeah, it's going to be absolutely crazy. That's what makes these races so good when it comes to the strategy, to how it unfolds. With the gap, by the way, between the 7 and the 98, to speak of the race lead within the GTD category, with the battle there, I'd have to say, I don't think Cobra are particularly saving too much fuel. When it comes to speaking of race leads, have you seen the size of that gap between the top 3 in the touring car category? Apex, RHG are now separated by 1.5 seconds. Could be a super battle towards the checkered flag.
I again have sent the feelers out to the spies in the Cobra camp. I'm trying to get word from the Finns, but we know how talkative Finns can tend to be. This is the fight once again between RHG and Impulse. They cannot separate themselves with one another. This time it's Ollie Steinbraten who is behind the 122 with Marcel Jochenheim at the wheel of that Impulse 122. The fight of the race in round 1, without a shadow of the doubt. But both cars have had to go through the wars in the second round of the championship.
Yeah, this is obviously not the battle for the race lead. This is the battle for 7th within the touring car category. And like I say, Steinbraten trying to find a way past, but this is not an easy circuit to pass. Certainly not in a touring car. Obviously in GTDs, you kind of expect a few mistakes within that category. You do expect a couple of this. The touring cars, they're actually surprisingly predictable around here. Tricky, yes, but predictable to a certain degree, as predictable as touring cars really get, which means that you don't tend to see too many mistakes. It means when it comes to a move, you've got to properly send one down the inside. You've got to be very big, very brave. And you can see, is that Mirror Esports? Because there are a lap down, surely, on this.
They are. They are a lap down.
There's no way they're a part of the fight.
Yes, the touring cars have been splintered up once again. They fight hammer and tongs at the start, and then you get a couple of battle packs, even with the interruptions of the safety car. We haven't really seen them bunch up as much as maybe would have wanted and hoped. So, Kova, I got the response. I think, Lewis, the best way to sum this one up is Antti Ahola and Matti Siepler are very disappointed that Bruno Spengler did not bring out the caution.
So yes, they're not looking so good on the fuel. That is the code there. I understand what you're trying to say, Kova. So they're not in the greatest spot. That safety car could have helped them out if the caution had come out there, but alas, no need for it. Race Control brought that car in, and we'll go to I was going to say we'll go to the checkered flag. We don't know yet. We've got 25 minutes left in this race, and there's still plenty of time for a safety car to come out. But it's a 3.8 second lead for Siepler at the moment. I'm surprised they've not been trying to save fuel. They're Steinbraten to the inside. There's going to be a big move coming up towards the rainy curve. That was brave stuff trying to get past Impulse. They've got the Williams Esports Razor car behind. Penultimate corner trying to get around the outside. What a move from RHG and Steinbraten.
Oh, and then Steinbraten, I think, was just like, okay, I'll let the Mercedes find its way around me, but what's the thing that you're told as a slower class car? Take your racing line, compromise out of the final corner. It's another drag race on the run to turn number 2.
Yeah, it's going to cost them a position because the Impulse car, I say cost them, it's going to return them back to the position they're in, because I'm pretty sure Marcel Jochenheim might... Oh, never mind, he's gone for a slight slide. Slams the throttle down. Kova comes through, your race leader. Wow, that was a moment. Just getting squeezed onto the curb. But, I say squeezed. I don't mean that to put any blame or to apportion any blame onto the RHG. That was brilliant racing. Just about enough room given. A bit of a mistake there.
So in this touring car category, let's not forget Gael Valero and the Apex Racing Team 199 and the Arnage 118 driven by Ricardo Ferreira have both been on track for about 38-39 laps. There are many questions as to whether those two cars are good enough on fuel. If they are not, it promotes Valentin Mandenak, who is sitting back and biding his time right now to try and grab the race win. However, he is also one that had a slightly shorter stop in the final cycle of pit stops. I wonder if he's sitting back by virtue of the need to save just a tad bit of fuel, but regardless of how it plays out, he is still about 5 seconds clear of Corentin Muniz, who is the next best car in touring car.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very curious to see how this one's going to switch out. We've just seen Jamie Fluke and Johnny Vecchio, by the way, switching positions. There is that contact. I mean, Kova were close to getting involved in that. It's got to be said. Just like I said, I think there was a bit of contact, which what sent the rear end slightly round there on the Impulse car, but is what it is. But yeah, Jamie Fluke, by the way, has got up into 3rd spot. It could be, if Cobra don't have the fuel, it could be an Apex Racing Team 1-2 as MSI try and get on the inside of BS turnout.
BS Turner had been complaining that he was struggling to close to the 97, but they've taken advantage of the traffic to latch right onto the back of Gianni Vecchio and the Team Redline number 70 to now try and crown the best of the BMWs, because now we expect Matti Siepola to come down to pit lane with maybe 3 laps to go. Let's head back down to pit lane, because Ewan O'Leary, it's getting heated in some of the radio channels as drivers work through traffic.
Oh dear, yeah, it certainly is. It tends to at this stage in the race. The guys at Redline maybe a little bit frustrated with their look in traffic, and it certainly helped Jamie Fluke there in his move. Johan Hart was kind of talking him through it as that move was made, explaining that the Redline car would be stuck at the outside through the final corner, and so wouldn't be able to come back at him. And it looks like that gap has been cemented here, because what was a 3-car train for third place has now become 4. All of a sudden Redline are looking over their shoulders, and the discussion in Apex has gone away from Redline almost immediately as they made that pass.
Here comes the hometown hero, Phil Denez. Bumper cars played through the final corner. Now, is there more damage on any of these machines with 22 minutes to go? Swap around in touring cars. Mandanark in the 108 R8G Honda takes the lead away from Gael Valero. It's now all about these fuel considerations, and I wonder if Valero is, you can already see the gap visibly opening up if he's already gone into fuel conservation mode.
Yeah, might need to. And again, I will say with the touring cars, they do wear the Michelin rubber quite a lot on that front end, as you'd expect with it being a front-wheel drive, so potentially might have overdone those tyres in the early stages of this stint, this final stint of the race, so that could be causing problems. We've got this massive fight, like you've been saying, Team Redline holding on from BS Turner, holding on from MSI Esports, and look who's joining the fight in the background as well. Luca Kita, Mercedes-AMG, Team Urano also joining this fight. Out a little bit wide there was Denez. It's going to be a tight little scrap here, but Gianni Vecchio, I'd have to say that Team Redline car looking like it's struggling right now when it comes to the pace, and they haven't a fuel save too much.
In stark contrast to how it was at the start when Diogo Pinto was well and truly flying. Just look at how wide he is down through turn 9, the rainy curves. Cambered in turn 10. Phil Denez again so confident, and this is where they had the contact a lap ago. Denez misjudges the traffic, opens the door for Salvatallons to throw the move to the inside through the final corner. Denez will try and get the ramp off the corner on the outside line, but Salvatallons saw the opportunity and holds the inside down the hill.
What a send there from Salvatallons to have got to the inside, completes the move as they come down into the Andretti hairpin, make sure he doesn't run out wide, but that was so brave. How these drivers navigate traffic. I've been saying this before in some of the other series that I commentate in, but at the top level of sim racing, the speed, the aggression, but still the security, the comfort, the knowledge that these drivers navigate traffic is absolutely breathtaking. And there was another one. That was, of course, them trying to navigate one of the Apex Racing Team car, of course, in the touring car category. That was a bit close, though, to a touch of contact. And I've got to say, that Apex Racing car is coming under a lot of pressure from our knives per second. They're definitely struggling on fuel.
Yeah, there is a lot going on right now. 20 minutes to go. It very much became the sprint after the extended caution cycle that we had. About 20 minutes just before we started the final hour of the race. A bit of a wibble there for Luca Kita, who hooked a little bit too much of the gravel, cutting the inside of the corkscrew, but doesn't lose too much ground. And look at how much momentum he builds on Phil Denez, as Denez now losing momentum hand over fist. 98, the Alejandro Sanchez-driven Apex Racing Team car is looking good to take 2 wins on the bounce to start this season off, and it might actually be a Apex Racing 1 and 2 if Jamie Fluke can keep his nose out of trouble for 20 minutes longer.
Yeah, indeed, and that is also taken into account if they've been totally honest with you. I'll do maybe Cobra trying to throw you a bit of a curveball here. I do genuinely think that they are going to struggle on fuel, so each the road on that one. They've got a 5-second lead at the moment. They've not even attempted to save fuel over this stint. They are just burning it. We ride on board with Luke Kita, who looks straight into the camera at the opportune moment and takes almost like a bit of a breath of, oh, okay, here we go. Another little attempt. He almost looks a bit disinterested in the race, which is impossible, surely, in a race that's got this much drama. You've got to keep focused, but it is exhausting. Again, looking at, obviously, you've got some data around where the camera is. He's not looking straight into the eyes of the audience. Don't panic. He won't be doing that every single time for the last 2 hours and 20 minutes.
He does actually, Hugo Luis saying what I was just about to point out, he actually has a handful of track maps, although we take points away.
Only
because
2.
There's only 2, and there's no Laguna Seca, which is a disappointment. This car is under investigation for 2 things, as that's another Monaco Ferrari having an issue, not for the first time today. It's Ricardo Rico that's trying to find an opportunity to rejoin the track. But Urano, of course, investigated for an incident, first with touring car traffic. In fact, these are basically all the same incidents. Incidents 22, 23, and 24, all reported by different teams, but it all involved the 3-wide malarkey that we had with Full Send, the BMW BS competition, and the Mercedes-AMG Urano cars.
Yeah, like I say, some of these risky bits in traffic, naturally, like I said before, you're going to irritate people. You're going to tick them off, and they're going to want to get you done by race control. And that's exactly what we've seen by some of these touring cars. A lot of them will feel genuinely like a pinball over the afternoon. That's just how it goes. That's the nature of this style of racing. I mean, the GTDs and the touring cars are so different when it comes to their pace differential. You expect to see those dramatic moments coming through some of the traffic.
Here's the Michelin on board with Salva Talent, who is on the charge and trying to channel the energy of the Michelin man forward. Plenty of drivers starting to complain about the state, though, of their Michelin tyres, Ewan O'Leary, as we head into the final quarter of an hour.
Yeah, absolutely. Gianni Vecchio certainly complaining about a lot of understeer in the car. Lorenzo Bonda hypothesising that it is down to the tyres that are on that car. We don't know for sure, of course, but it does seem like a logical guess to go for here at this late stage in the race. Interesting to hear as well what I was hearing in the number 90 Urano camp as well, especially about the number 14 MSI Esports. We saw them on that pit stop phase there, and Lewis picked up on it at the time as well. I believe certainly as well that they exited a closed pit lane, but there's no protest for that at the moment. But Urano certainly believes that they will, that MSI will get a penalty for it, although I'm not really sure whether they will or not. They're certainly still mentioning that incident between themselves and BS Competition as well, which is under investigation right now. You mentioned that a couple of moments ago. We're yet to see the outcome of it, but Urano still very much in the camp that it wasn't their fault, of course.
Mentioned this last week, but we have a rather substantial race control team, all with separate responsibilities, that we've kind of carried some of the learnings from real world motorsport while using some of the benefits of sim racing that we enjoy, such as infinite camera angles and placements wherever you like, no matter how unfeasibly difficult they would be in the real world. Looking rearwards from Gianni Vecchio as they dive down through the penultimate corner at Salva Talent. That Porsche has started to come alive. There is a bit of damage potentially to the front splitter, but you can see how much he's pushing the limit, and you can see how much he's urging that car along by its body language.
Yeah, you can see it struggling right now. There's Salva Talent's looking to the inside, but does not have the overspeed. He might well try again, but Gianni Vecchio is going to cover it off, coming down towards the first real corner, and the Andretti hairpin. BS Turner also in there with Phil Denez. It's going to be a tight little fight between the start. But I've got to say, again, with the MSI car, it's got to be said that if it was a closed pit lane, it's a slam dunk penalty. They did just drive out. Now, I'm not 100% sure on the ruling on that one, because like I say, it's all done. It wouldn't be a red light. It's all kind of treated as a green light in game, but then it's race control that are basically saying in text, closed pit exit, closed open. That they're all saying it. They're all communicating with the drivers in that way. So it's about what was seen and what was said then. But either way, they're going very fast now. You see how close over to the right-hand side Phil Denez was there as he's trying to wrestle his way to the back of these two and look for a fourth place finish. It'll become a final spot for the podium, remember?
Yeah, no, it will do, assuming Matti Siepler has to come down pit lane and we haven't been told some false truths to spice up the action to the end of this one. My word, what a crazy race. I thought round one was crazy, but this really has managed to intensify that to just another level. It will be yet another dominant victory for Alejandro Sanchez as it runs right now, assuming, as the information that, as we know it, holds as it is, Jamie Fluke behind for an Apex Racing Team 1 and 2, the result that I think they would have expected given the speed that they showed at the first round of the championship. Let's talk about what's next, Lo Lewis. Yes, we get a week or so off, but we're back racing for a preview of the Battle of the Bricks as we head to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
Yeah, we love going to Indianapolis every single time. It's got such great character, whether it's in real life or even in sim racing. You do get that vibe. Salva Talent's looking one way, back the other, trying to get around the outside of at turn 5. Maybe do the up and under up towards 6, getting squeezed off a little bit there by Gianni Vecchio, and still the 70 hangs on. But yeah, Indianapolis is going to be a great track, super raceable. The next two obviously being Rovals. I mean, both of them are going to be incredibly raceable. I'm sure we're in for drama of a slightly different variety when we get to those two.
Yeah, let's not try to talk about that just yet. On board again with the Michelin camera that rides on the roof of Phil Denez in that BS Turner split livery. One starts to wonder, at what point does Sal Vitalen start to get irritated by the level of defense that Gianni Vecchio is putting out? But this time it was Talons that made the mistake, dropping the left sides into the gravel.
Yeah, it's like I say, it's a tough one at the moment, but Gianni Vecchio is defending so well at the moment. I was talking about this over a 24-hour race that I was doing, and we were talking about, obviously, you commentate on the start of it, I commentate on the end of it. I'm watching some of the battles in that. It was at Spa, and some of the defence in that was very proactive. I've said this before, I'll say it again even in this broadcast. I love myself some proactive defence. It's when you're making the move first and basically forcing them to go around you. And it's exactly what Gianni Vecchio has been doing right now. He's been basically saying, if I'm going to put my car here, you can go around the outside, you can give it a go, but I'm going to put my car here. I'm going to give you the room, I'm going to give you the respect, but I'm putting my car where basically where you want to be. But predicting it in the future by driving basically ahead of time. It's a super effort right now. It's got 12 minutes and 20 seconds left to go, but there's a lot of laps in that time.
One thing that you'll notice as we get ready for Rain to join the iRacing platform, hopefully at some point before the end of the year, is just how much dust is on the windshield for Phil Denez. This BMW M4 GT3 does have a working windshield wiper, and you can see how it's defined, how much of the windshield is clean, how much of it is dirty. Pass more lap traffic, 12 minutes left on the clock. This very much is the battle that you cannot take your eyes away from. And remember how Denez lost out to Talent earlier? It was with a mistake, a poor decision through traffic. Could we see that happen again?
Oh, I did not like riding on board with Phil Denez there. That was terrifying. I've been in that boat a few times myself. He's got on the brakes, and all he is thinking is like, I'm definitely going to hit the back of this MSI car right now. Vanek, thankfully, just avoided it ever so slightly, but very close between the two. Once again, Sal Vitalen looks to the inside, trying to get past Gianni Vecchio. Still not able to pass right now. Like I said, the expectation this is going to become the battle for the podium. The two Apex Racing Team cars out comfortably ahead of this. Cova, question marks on the fuel, likely to be coming in. It's not the only battle we've got on track at the moment, because the race lead in the touring car category also incredibly tight. RHG and Apex separated by less than a second. Arnage not a million miles away.
Yeah, the question still is, how much fuel does Gael Valero need to save to be able to get that car to the end? He has done 47 laps. Yes, a lion's share of them initially were done under caution. See if we can get word from the Apex Racing touring car camp how it's shaking out there. Still tracking this fight for what will be the final step of the podium when we get to those closing stages. Ricardo Ferreira for the Arnage 118 dives to pit lane, and given he was similar on fuel with the Apex Racing Team, I think we know for sure Gael Valero owes us a trip to pit lane as Sal Vitalen fakes a move.
Oh yeah, that might have been a bit reactionary there from Gianni Vecchio, because he kind of committed. Sal Vitalen went for it. Gianni Vecchio opened up the door. Sal Vitalen is going to drag his way through potentially this time right, but he's got to get the inside for the Andretti hairpin. This one's going to be very tight. Arjuna, I'm not sure which way it's going to go. It's going to be very close. Sal Vitalen's down the inside.
I think an opportunity for Denez, and he thinks about it, has a slight overlap with Vecchio for a moment, and while the Porsche moves forward, Vecchio tries to fight it back into turn number 3. The BMW forces Talent off into the gravel, and now block checks Phil Denez. Intense stuff with 10 minutes left to go, but it's MSI Esports that loses out and is down in 6th spot.
Yeah, Sal Vitalen is going to be furious about that instant send back from Gianni Vecchio. That was a proper Valentino Rossi moment. That, if ever you've seen one in the world of sim racing, Valentino Rossi was well known in the world of bike racing for, if it's been passed, I'm going to go straight away. MSI, big crash though, straight into the barrier. That'll be then done when it comes to decent points-paying positions. That is a massive moment from Sal Vitalen, bang into the barrier. He was trying so hard, potentially too hard.
Now, I think they may get away without too much damage because of how it hit the wall, but a frustrating sequence as Sal Vitalen will now drop back to 13th. The lowest of lows and the highest of highs for that team after going all the way up and down through the field on multiple occasions. Too much speed, too much commitment. It's a good thing the engine's in the back because it won't be damaged.
Yeah, there is that. I mean, that was a sad moment for Salvo Talent, but you know, as soon as Gianni Vecchio went straight to the inside, if there was one driver on this track that would be irritated at that point, it would be Salvo Talent. And unfortunately for him, drove like he was frustrated, as in overdrove. Red Mist took over, committed too much going through T6. It's why we've said it's one of the hardest corners, to be fair, in the entire country. Of all the corners in America, that's probably pretty high. Inside the United States when it comes to its difficulty, and gotta say, it has bitten a few today.
I'm still trying to wrap my head around everything that we've seen here today. If I was actually taking handwritten notes, I would have run out of paper at this point for all the different little bits and bobs that we've seen. Kova and Matti Siepla out of fuel, and they roll their BMW M4 to the safety of pit lane and will likely drop outside of the top 10. They knew it was a gamble. It was the only thing they could really do.
Yeah, the thing is, like I said, if it was 3 laps, you could maybe save that level of fuel. Obviously, they weren't even attempting to save any fuel, but they've come down onto pit lane. It'll be a short stop. They'll rejoin in a fairly decent spot. In fact, they might actually come out in 3rd. It'll be pretty tight. No. If not, they'll be on the back of that train.
I think at best they are 9th. Now Matti Siepla will release himself, has already dropped to 8th, will actually get out in front of Team 75 Bernard by SimRC, who is behind the Williams Esports Razor Mercedes that we just saw. They, of course, are 1 lap down, the bright green machines of Kova, at the very least, still grab 8th and have some time to play with, and how much can they push?
They're in that train. I mean, I'm not saying they could do very much there, but if there is drama ahead of them, they'll be able to gain a couple of extra spots. And when you've got a feisty battle like that, you can see how much dust is being kicked up out of T4, because basically you can see nothing on the exit there, just because of how much is being kicked up and into the air. But I mean, for Kova, they could get a decent result.
Kyle Valero is still not pit. He's on lap 50 of his stint so far. Surely he's trying the gamble to get to the end from here, because it's not worth the risk of not pitting. However, with that being said, have you noticed who's a-coming? Because here comes Corentin Gunes within 3 seconds of your race lead with 6.5 minutes to go.
Yeah, whilst Apex Racing Team might be looking for back-to-back in the GTD category, SimRC looking for back-to-back, potentially after the drama they've had today. Could it happen? I mean, 2nd place I think is almost a guarantee, because I just don't think that Kyle Valero's got the pace with the fuel saving that's being required. I mean, he's dropped off 2 seconds off the rear end of Valentin Mandelac, where he was quite close earlier on in this race. Does the SimRC car, though, have the pace to close in on Valentin Mandelac in the small time left to go in this race? That I'm not so sure. 2nd, though, definitely on the cards.
It's down to 2 seconds, Lewis. It's down to 2 seconds, and here comes Gunes on the charge. I think if you're Valero, you've got to now actually fight with the SimRC machine, knowing that that's the car that's the favorite for the championship. Try and hold it up as much as possible, at the very least cost it time, and then maybe you save some fuel behind it. GTD update very quickly as well. It is an Apex Racing 1 and 2. It's the 98 of Alejandro Sanchez, ready to win once more with Jamie Fluke, ready to grab the 2nd step of the podium for the Corby crew. Gianni Vecchio still fending off Phil Denez, Luca Kita, and Luis Najer, but there is a bit of a separation starting to form in that train for 3rd, Lewis.
Yeah, I've got to say, if we caught the lap on board with Corentin Gunes now, with him doing the voiceover lap, I'm pretty sure it'll be a little bit more thrilling than the one we had earlier on. I'm definitely excited, because wow, what a stint from Gunes. And like I say, the potential of a race victory is still on the cards. He's going to get the up and under and look down the inside of the rainy curve. Certainly wasn't close enough, but definitely had a look. It's a Lantra versus a Lantra, a Honda Civic Type R directly ahead within the touring car category. And you can see that car is under a lot of pressure ahead. Kyle Valero's feeling it. Almost into the rear end goes Corentin Gunes.
He needs to get the move done now, though, because time is running out. He already thinks potentially the lead is out of his reach. Quick update, we'll head back down to pit lane for what might be the final time today. The 55, the Williams-AMG entry, complaining of tyres, and they aren't the only ones, with plenty of fighting, as almost a stack up there. SimRC, contact with the Apex Racing Team. They front-wheel drive their way out of it. They sort it out, but drama for 2nd. The lead is done, Lewis.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta say, as soon as you were seeing that the line that Gunes was taking down into that corner, I mean, I've done my fair share of touring car driving over the last sort of 7-8 years. That was never going to work, not in a million years, and unfortunately just overcommitting. Still seconds on the cards. I mean, hey, the race lead might still be possible, but it's just a little bit too far down the road. You're absolutely right. They absolutely front-wheel drive that one.
Yeah, I like that expression. I'm going to keep that one in my back pocket. Michelin Driver of the Day. Don't forget to let us know in the chats who you think should be up for the vote. Remember, we nominate 3. We post it on the VCO Esports social media. You let us know who is the Michelin Driver of the Day after Alejandro Sanchez won it at the end of round number 1. Let's head down to Ewan O'Leary very quickly then, because there are a couple of things you want to talk about with 3.5 minutes to play.
Yeah, certainly are. I think Sim RC is certainly accepting that second place is their limit here today. Frustration for Corentin Guinez in this final part of the stint as Gal Valero comes in. So second is going to be the limit. They accepted that a couple of laps ago, actually. Corentin himself said we're just too far away with this amount of gap, with this amount of time remaining in the race. Further up front, everybody seems to be just falling apart in terms of tyres. We mentioned the 55 Williams car in 6th place right now, falling off in tyres. Gianni Vecchio is having to be coached through this one by Diogo Pinto in the final moments, but they believe if they avoid mistakes, then the podium will be theirs. Urano also complaining about the tyres in the number 90. They're now 1.5 seconds off of 4th.
So Gael Valero tried as much as he could and got within 3 minutes of the end of the race. Well, 3 minutes plus hypothetically 1 lap. It was close. Was it worth the gamble? They'll come out in 5th. I don't think that was the worst case scenario, to say the very least. We still watch this fight for 3rd. Gianni Vecchio getting coached by Diogo Pinto as Phil Denez continue to lurk large in the rearview mirrors, although it's fair to say not as big as the BMW M8.
Yeah, gotta say, it was in a touch too deep there and almost pushed off the Full Said Racing car, but we can see Phil Denez.
Ooh, Luis Najar's gone wrong, something for him. That's
yeah, damn it, T1. We're going with it.
Yes, it is T1, and that's a very wild and wide run for the Mercedes-AMG Williams Esports entry. See if we can grab a look before we bring this up to an end, or bring this race to an end. Oh,
yeah,
well, they were trying to
they
were trying to maximize the track, and I think they just missed their braking zone.
Yeah, you can't really. You can get away with 2 wheels on it. It was almost 4 wheels on it. It's slippery out there, and like I say, you're asking a lot from the ABS in that kind of scenario. With 1 minute and 30 seconds left to go in this race, are we heading on to the final lap? Are we going to get one more?
I think we're going to get one more, because your leaders. No, this will be the final lap of the race, because Alejandro Sanchez has just powered out of the final corner. This fight for 3rd will get more intense. It will get more physical, because Phil Denez has already tried once, and I think Phil Denez is not content to finish this race in 4th.
BMW on BMW. We've got Porsche 1-2, but who's going to be the BMW joining them on the podium whilst there are 2 Mercs behind, only one's for position? Who's going to be finishing on the final step of the podium at the moment is Team Redline after a very hard day. But BS Turner, they won it. And I know, hashtag no bias in the commentary booth, but I know someone in this commentary booth is desperate to see that BS Turner on the podium. I know it's not me. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm more than happy to love myself some BS, but Arjuna, he loves it.
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not ensconced in my Taco Turner blanket right now, getting ready for an electric 30 seconds to finish this race off. And what a day it's been. Several cautions after going caution-free in round number 1. Denez with the look to the inside through turn 5, but Vecchio slams the door shut. And I think that might be the final opportunity, unless traffic is going to play its part, because up and into the corkscrew, Denez runs it wide, but this is where he will have the chance to send it to grab 3rd away with RAG the blocker.
Oh, last corner though, Arjuna, we might see something. Final corner.
Oh, there's still the opportunity. Meanwhile, it's back-to-back domination for the Apex Racing team. This time it's Alejandro Sanchez that wins for the 2022 IMSA Esports Michelin Global Championship, but it's a 1-2 for the Apex Racing team. They are here to win. They are here to dominate. Team Redline will hold on to 3rd at the very closing stages. Try as he could, Phil Denez could not break the door down, and we now have to wait a full lap to see RAG Esports and Valentin Mandanat cross the line as winners in the touring car category. Strike 1 went to Hyundai 7 days ago. The Hondas have roared back.
Yeah, I did say that this track does tend to favour the Hondas a little bit more, but what RHG get out of that car is absolutely ridiculous. They did so well last round, of course, at Road Atlanta, but now to be in this kind of position, to be taking a victory here at Laguna Seca, it shows the fight and the spirit that RHG has. And I've got to say, I said it before, I'll say it again, that is one pretty car.
These are drivers that perhaps we're more used to seeing in open-wheel cars. You definitely say that for two World Championship drivers in the form of Florian Lebiger and Valentin Mandanach, but they take Roman Grosjean Esports to the top of victory lane for the 2022 IMSA Esports Michelin Global Championship. A punch of the fist, a smile, and a victory to their name. The championship is well and truly blown wide open. A roller coaster of a race here at the WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. We'll keep this post-race show as quick as possible because we do know there is this certain thing called the US Grand Prix that starts in, about 18 minutes time, but it is some well-deserved burnouts and donuts for the Corby crew on the front straight here at Laguna Seca.
Well, I say RHG will win bonus points for me if they drive round and drive straight into the pit lane barrier. That would be top points from my view if they do that on the in-lap. I'm just saying, if you could make that so, that'd be great. But either way, what a race it's been for Apex. What a dominating display. I say dominating, they had to work for that one big time.
This time, though, with half the season already done, it's hard to doubt the title credentials for the 98 for Kevin Ellis Jr. and for Alejandro Sanchez. Plenty of smoke thrown up into the air here on the start-finish line. Let's run you down through the race results. It's a Corby 1 and 2 with the Apex Racing team leading the way. Back-to-back for Kevin Ellis Jr. and Alejandro Sanchez, with Jamie Fluke right behind. Gianni Vecchio grabs third on the road after starting up in second. A difficult day for Team Redline in their BMWs, though. Phil Dinez behind. Luca Kita rounds out the top 5 after having to work his way forward from 12th spot. BMW Team Redline down in 6th for their 71 after being spun around by the teammate early doors. Kova and Matty Siepler, the gamble still paying off overall, plus 15 for them to get into 7th in front of Team 75 Bernard by Simarcy. The Biela Racing Lamborghini that impressed in 9th, and Hardpoint by Delta Sport grabbing the final spot inside the top 10. They will be thrilled to be in front of the likes of Luis Naja for Mercedes-AMG Williams, Salva Talons in the IMSA Esports car, still under investigation, so provisionally scored in 12th. Pure Sims Triton, Monaco Brabham, Aspar, and CrowdStrike on the leading lap in front of Tristan Iglesias in the Altus Esports Lamborghini that some were a bit terrified to be around today. Urano Esports Data Group rounds out the top 20. Then a handful more cars finished, with Daniel Lafuente and the Williams Esports Razor in front of Altus in their McLaren, the Monaco Ferrari and the Race Clutch Ferrari, and then a handful of retirees. Bruno Spengler, the most recent of whom was upside down on the pit lane entry, but then Arnage, Carbon, Maniti, Kova, and Dor also not seeing the end of this race. Fastest lap punched in by Daniel Lafuente. Maybe not a huge shot, but let's run you down through the touring cars. Win number 1 went to the Hyundais. Win 2 goes to the Hondas as Valentin Mandanach leads RHG to victory lane in front of the winners last time out, Corentin Gunes, who at the very least will grab second. Wojciech Savidovic in the Semper Racing 179 grabs the final spot on the podium. Lewis McLeod applauding my pronunciation there, with Steen Ledger the first of those one lap down in front of Gael Valero, Ricardo Ferreira, Ollie Steinbraten in the second of the RHG Hondas, Impulse, CrowdStrike, and Full Send Racing the top 10. Just a handful more cars, all but one seeing the checkered flag. Full Send Racing and Mirror Esports 11 to 12. Core Sim Racing having to show true endurance racing spirits, while the Honda Racing official HPD entry found itself embroiled in the red line spat, and with significant damage, Jacob Abel had to retire this car instantly. That was a look top to bottom at your race results, and we are waiting for the winners to step into the RaceSpot TV commentary booth. So a quick chat then, Lewis, about what we saw here today.
Yeah, I would say, by the way, I don't know if that pronunciation was correct. I'm just more impressed that you didn't bail out of it, which is what I would have done. I was like, all right, team name and move on. What a day, though. I mean, the first round of this championship delivered at the drama. I said if you want to go to a slightly more dramatic circuit, you want to turn that up to 11, you've got to go to somewhere like Laguna Seca. And we saw exactly every single reason as to why it's a circuit which delivers on the drama, with the action, with the combat. I mean, it was absolutely brilliant. We've seen our first safety car of the season, and then another one to boot as well. Thankfully, no third one. We've seen some excellent racing. We've seen a car upside down. We've seen basically everything this round.
We did see plenty of drama, and I don't think the race control job will be done, let alone just working through some of the safety car stuff that we have to make sure it's going to be more impressive for round number 3, assuming that we do have it. Plenty of incidents and talking points still to work our way through. Let's not dally around, because we do have to work our way through this VCO post show as quickly as possible. So let's once again bring on in the winning duo, Kevin Ellis Jr. and Alejandro Sanchez. Join us once again. Let's start in Corby with Kevin Ellis Jr., who started this race off. And Kevin, what was the difference like for you starting this race versus finishing last time out?
Yeah, it was a little bit more stressful. I wasn't really sure if I was even going to be qualifying a couple hours before. Alejandro had another competition on, and things were running a little bit tight. So yeah, it was a pretty stressful morning, but you know, we managed to keep it together. Yeah, and then got the job done today. Obviously, starting the race was a little bit different, as you say, but you know, the plan remained the same as last week, and you know, keep your head down, keep it clean, and get the job done.
How was that safety car for you? Because I have to assume this is the first time you've actually had safety cars in an endurance race.
Yeah, the first time around was fine. That second one was a bit confusing for us. You know, it started out, we pitted and we were a couple laps short on fuel, so we were kind of like, okay, we can save some fuel back under safety car, but we'll need to save more after the green flag comes out. But then it just kept going and going and going, and eventually got to the point where like, okay, we're good on fuel, and things started to kind of fall back into place. We were scared for a little bit there that the race had sort of gotten away from us. After we took tires and then got caught behind a TCR and pit exit, things were looking a bit grim, but you know, it ended up bailing us out in the end.
We'll switch over to Alejandro Sanchez, who finished this race off in fine fashion, pulling away from those behind. I mean, back-to-back victories now, Alejandro. What have you figured out in this Porsche to set yourself up so nicely in this championship?
Main win, max Rick, and that'll be shit.
Apologize for the language there for Alejandro Sanchez. I'll ask you one more question before I let you go, though. In terms, though, of that traffic, especially at this track, at least we go to 2 tracks after this that are a little bit bigger and have more space. You've got through the 2 races where the traffic was expected to be at maybe its most difficult.
Yeah, really happy with the way we went through the traffic. We kept it safe for the whole thing. Of course, the safety cars were like they made us stress out a little bit because we weren't sure if we were gonna make it on fuel. But in the end, Mark made a great call, and we were pretty good on fuel. We had plenty. Of course, I had an easy job this time. Kev handed the car over to me like net P1, basically. So I just had to get through the lap cars and yeah, finish first. So really happy with the job that the team has been doing for the past months at this point.
Yes, no, it has been a run of form for the Apex Racing team. We'll let the 2 of you go off to celebrate once again. You must be getting quite familiar with this process. And we'll drag on in the winners in the touring car class. It was a very up and down race with so many contenders up the front. But Lewis McLeod is standing by with Valentin Mandanuk and Florian Labigra from Roman Grosjean Esports.
Yeah, I mean, cannot believe that level of racing that was out there. I'm going to go to Valentin Mandanuk first. I mean, talk us through the drama out there. Absolute insanity. So much pressure on your shoulders. Came across as a victor. Was there any point where that was in doubt?
I think no. That was just so much pressure. I was pushing from the beginning at the end of the safety car, and I just tried to see where I could overtake Gael, and when the GT3 went for the overtake, I said that's my moment.
Talk to us about the difficulties of this car around a circuit like this. You know, Laguna Seca is tight and twisty. It's quite understeery in a touring car at the best of times. But how difficult was it to keep on top of the Michelin tyres? You know, things like that. What was it like driving?
To be honest, that's easier than GT3, to be honest, because worse the tires are, easier it is to drive. So at the end the car was just so fast. And it was so cool to drive, and I think the tire management is not too hard on this car.
Well, we'll head over to Florian to kind of discuss some of the stuff in the earlier stages of the race. When those GTDs come through, from a commentary perspective, it looks absolutely terrifying. Talk to us about that and the expectations of what we might see from those GTDs coming through in future. Is it always going to be that scary, or are we expecting some things to calm down?
Well, I guess for this track it's pretty hard, and it was the same at Road Atlanta. But I guess for the two last rounds, it's gonna be easier, I guess, because it's oval tracks. But when we saw them come in the mirrors, made it fucking scary. Sorry for the words, but it's so much scary. We have two spotters, so we have Julian Sunin, who's gonna drive for Indianapolis. So he's watching behind, and Valentin was watching ahead, and that's how we are managing the traffic.
Yeah, well, we'll let you run off. Obviously, apologies for the language. We'll end that one there, and we'll just carry on. I mean, wow, what a round of racing.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but both teams so worked up after the race that we have to apologize for both of the sets of languages. We got a couple more minutes before we wrap up and turn our attention to some Formula One racing. But Lewis, a second round in the books, halfway through this championship, and next time it's 2 weeks away. We go racing back at 2 p.m. Eastern, but we head to the Brickyard to preview the Battle of the Bricks.
Yeah, it's going to be a great track to go racing at. Slipstream's going to be king around there. Fuel mileage goes back to sitting in a couple of trains, but we know that it's going to be turned up to 11 when it comes to the drama through the midpoint of the track. It should be a little bit easier to navigate some of those touring cars, but I'm sure we're in for a big bit of drama.
And that, of course, the updated version of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, courtesy of a new scan and a new configuration of the road course. Going to be very electric to see exactly how that one plays out. Traffic going to be very difficult in the opening and the final sectors, and then there are a handful of straights where you can take a deep sigh and breathe. Before we say goodbye then, Lewis, final talk about Michelin Driver of the Day. 3 options, I believe it is Kevin Ellis Jr., Valentin Mandinok, and Corentin Gunes. Who would you put forward of the 3 of them as your Michelin Driver of the Day?
Pretty difficult one there. I'd probably lean more on Corentin Gunes after that final stint. Absolutely superb to have dragged that car up towards the front again.
Well, once again, it comes to an end. Halfway through now, the 2022 IMSA Esports Michelin Global Championship. Today brought more chaos, this time from the WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. It was caution-free 7 days ago. It was not to be on the best coast of the USA. Many incidents, much for race control to work its way through. But a familiar winner in one class, a new winner in the second class. Congratulations goes to the Apex Racing team, as well as the Romain Grosjean Esports winner here from the WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. For everyone behind the scenes at VCO, for the team at iRacing, and for the team at IMSA. For DJ Clark, for Lorenzo Bonder, for Ewan O'Leary, Hugo Luis, Tyler Maxon, and Lewis McLeod, alongside myself, Arjuna Kankipati, thank you so much for your company. We'll see you for the first of 2 races in November to close this championship off. We'll be back from Indianapolis.